Welcome in to the PFF NFL show. Trevor Sikkema, Dalton Wasserman, here with you guys to preview Week 7 in the NFL. We're going over everything here on the show. We're going to go through every matchup that we have here on Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, another Monday night doubleheader. Dalton, I know you love those so much. Only two teams on the bye this week, so we got a lot of games to get to. How you feeling, my friend?
We do, Trev. We have a lot of games to get to, and certainly we've made plenty of headlines in the last couple of days, for sure.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea. I honestly, can we get into that for a minute, Trevor? Really, just have a conversation before we get into game previews and whatever else might go into whichever fan base we might irritate today. I was certainly back and forth with Bears fans about things with Caleb Williams, and look. Obviously, what's been said about us for 20 years now has always been said, right? And we are not. Here's the first thing I want to say. Find me a person, PFF related, adjacent, working for us now, myself included. Find me a person that thinks we're perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect, right? So that's first and foremost. And I think, Trev, and to me, this is a message to both the public and some of our own people. I don't believe we have a major problem analyzing football, Trev. We have communications with every NFL team, with over 200 college teams, with the CFL, with the XFL, with everybody else. Our analytics and the grading system and everything, is it ever going to be perfect? No. And I think that's the fun part of football analysis and the subjectivity of it and the debate behind it, is that there is so much context with 22 different guys on a football field. I've said before, it is not like baseball, where you've basically got an independent variable happening with a pitch and then the swing decision beyond that, and whatever happens after that happens. It's not like that. There is so much context that goes into football and grading individual players. Look, I use the part where I've done the grading myself for 3 years to the advantage and work to darn near the top level of it in this company. I use that to my advantage and that knowledge when talking about it. I firmly don't believe we have an issue with the grades or the analysis or anything of that nature. We have brilliant people behind the scenes, Trevor. You know them a lot. We have hundreds of people that do this all the time. There are former coaches. There are former players. There are things like that within, and those are some of the top guys we have, and everything gets reviewed a second time through. Yes, the TV copy, we do get it. It's the first time around. That's the first bit of grading, and we hope to get the vast majority of things right then. But we get the all 22 probably 3 or 4 hours after all of these games, and we have our top guys look over the all 22 and yes, interpret it the best that we can. And to be honest with you, even the things that sometimes that we don't know the full context of, Trev, I don't know about you, I get players and people reaching out to me at all the time going, hey, this is what we had in this coverage, or this was how this was blocked, or this was, an assignment that maybe this person screwed up or that one screwed up. I think the bigger problem we have had, and I firmly believe, and because you know what, I just want to get into something that one quote, something that Pat McAfee said on the show earlier today, on his show. The little qualifiers and all of the little things that kind of maybe get left out on certain visuals and the context and all of that. You're right. We do need to do a better job of explaining that and communicating. I think in the past we've had communication problems more so than actual analysis problems. I've only been on the media side of this company for a little over a year. I firmly believe it's my job, it's Trevor's job, it's Max Chadwick's job, Mason Cameron, Ben Lindsay, anybody else that we have on camera. I firmly believe that it is our job to fix that. And that's a message to our top people too, and I've told them that before. I think we need to be able to fix the communication issue so we can be more open and less combative. And any show that wants me on, because there's so many radio shows and podcasts and things like that they want to talk about their team, but the first thing they ask me, they go, hey, how does the grading scale actually work? And 20 years into this, that should have been communicated better. I agree with that, and I feel like it is my job to do that. So any show that wants me on, any radio show, podcast, TV station, anybody, written quote, whatever you want. I've done the grading myself. Now I'm on this side of it explaining it, and I think the bridge between those two things is the thing that we have been missing. So when Pat McAfee says, hey, they don't really communicate these things well, Pat, I agree with you. And we are trying to work on that. I promise you, I'm as open as possible. I really try to be, because I do think that is one of our biggest flaws. And we're, black and white with the uniform and everything's so numbers-based and concrete. But football isn't 100% concrete. And it's never going to be. And I'm not going to claim that we're perfect. There is no PFF person that claims that we're perfect. We do the absolute best we can 2 and 3 times over reviewing these things with some brilliant football minds that we have in the building. So anytime that anybody wants to have an open conversation about it, I'm perfectly willing to do so. Trev, I know you're perfectly willing to do so. Max as well. I feel like we're the beacons of communication here. And yes, we do need to improve upon what's been done the first 20 years here at this company to communicate those things.
Look, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying about the communication part of it. And, we could talk about this for an hour, and people are here to, preview the NFL. So I promise you guys we are going to get into that. But just so you guys know, I feel as though the big disconnect is from what we actually think at this company versus sort of how people perceive us. And I agree that it feels like at times, this company has been a little too combative or whatever you want to say about it. But we've never said the grades are perfect. We never said that. Certainly nobody who works here now has ever said that. We don't have that sentiment. I think what people are actually mad about when it comes to PFF grades, they're upset with the grades, but what they're really more upset about is how people talk about them. We have no control over that. A lot of former players, they point things out and they'll be like, well, you're wrong here. Okay, we can believe that we're not perfect in this. But to your point about just the system and how we go about things, we have our yearly summit where so much of us from around the country and so many people who work at PFF actually get to come to Cincinnati, and we get to see each other in person for what feels like once a year. And I am always so rejuvenated when we have those summits during the summer, because you get to hear from so many people in so many different parts of the company that you don't hear from normally. And you just realize how many smart people are working at this company and what goes into the processes, the data and the grades and how we watch film and how we grade and things like that. It's not perfect. And anybody out there who talks about PFF grades like they are a universal truth is not talking about them correctly. That's why you will never hear us talk about it like that. And that's why I think there are so many issues with the PFF grades. I think that it is a great starting point. And I think that the people who grade, the part-time data collectors, the recheck people, the people who are in charge of the process, do an unbelievable job doing the absolute best that they can when it comes to their knowledge of the game and the resources that we have, which obviously we have a lot of really great resources. That's why we feel like we could do it at a pretty high level. But of course, we don't know the exact assignments. We're not in the head coach's ear. We don't know the exact play call, but we do as good of a job as we possibly can. And I feel like we do a damn good job. I think the accuracy score of what we do is so high relative to what we are asking these data collectors to do. Is it a universal truth? No. But I do think it's a great starting point, and it's a great context point to really get to, okay, here's what the data says. Here's what the grades say. Let me look a little bit more into the data. Let me go into the film myself. That's what it really is about. PFF, it's a tool. It's not a universal truth, but when you look at PFF for a great tool, the grades included as a starting point, as a ballpark, whatever you want to look at it like, it enhances what you get when you look at everything that comes with what PFF has to offer. I think it's an excellent tool all the way around, but you will never hear the word perfect come out of my mouth because no process like this is ever going to be perfect. But I agree with you. I think we do a damn good job. I think that we are getting better along the way all the time, whether it's former coaches, former players that we get to work with and lean on and tell them about our processes and maybe tweak a little bit of things here and there. I love working for this company. I really do. And I think that it's the people that are able to execute these processes that makes it so much fun to work for, because you don't have to have faith in saying that something is perfect, that we got it right, that we'll never be wrong. Instead, we get to have faith in the people who are in charge of them and the people who know that they can always do a little bit better, that they can always have a little bit more context. And like you said, it's up to us to communicate that. And I feel like we haven't as a company over the last couple of years. And so whether it's, Pat McAfee, which by the way, I really appreciate Pat showing the full clip in his show, because there's a lot of people out there that do not do that. And so honestly, I said this on Twitter. I know that so many people at our company believe the same thing. I love that show. I think they do a great job. They're changing the football media landscape and everything, and even how they go about this conversation. I mean, I know they got J.J. Watt on there. J.J. Watt, I feel like, is somebody who does not like what we do, but I think that a lot of JJ's issues and a lot of other people's issues when it comes to PFF comes from how other people talk about PFF, not necessarily how we even at the company talk about kind of what we're doing. So I'm glad that you said that off the top of the show. I wasn't even going to talk about it, but I think that it is worth talking about because, like you said, I think it's our job to sort of be that beacon for the information and the grades and how we go about our process. And if anybody out there would love to know more about kind of what we do, we are always willing to have a conversation with people. We only got so many hours in a week, but we are always willing to have that conversation because I think that we got a lot of people who are trying to take this in the right direction. And the daunting task that is watching every player for every game, every week of the season, I think we do a pretty dang good job of making that as accurate as possible, given what we've got on this side of things. So anything else from you before we move on, before we talk about these games?
No, the only other point I'll make there is that for the people that think that we are biased towards one player or one team or another, literally the first rule of grading, the first thing that they tell you when they add you to the grading team is, hey, if we see any bias in your games when we review these things, you're gone. That's the number one rule, is that, look, if I'm doing a Jet game, if anything's tilted towards the Jets that shouldn't be, I wouldn't be in this building right now. So, I mean, yes, we're all fans of teams and things like that, but that is the number one rule of grading first and foremost. They tell you when they add you as a grader, if there's any bias here, you're out of here. You're literally gone because we don't do that. That's the number one rule of that entire process, is you grade football as football is.
There's a lot of people out there that say that we get paid by players or agents, and all I'm saying is if we do, God, where's my cut of it? Come on, guys.
You ain't lying. I'm like,
all right,
man, oh man.
Let's get into this. Anybody, again, of course, anybody that's listening to the show, watching the show, you guys want to know more about PFF, we're an open book about it. We would love to talk about it. So that, I think, is the main point of what you were trying to make. And I appreciate you opening up the show like that and giving us the platform to kind of explain that a little bit more, because I absolutely think that it matters, and I think you're 100% right. Let's get into these games. Let's talk about these games here. Thursday Night Football. Well, look at that. Kicking it off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals here on Thursday Night Football. It is, ironically, it feels like people say the most that we're most biased against the Steelers and we're most biased for the Cincinnati Bengals. So of course both of us are going to have the Cincinnati Bengals winning this game by a score of 70-3. I mean, you might have a shutout 70-0, but we'll see when we get into the final scores here. But Dalton, in all seriousness, let's talk about this game. Joe Flacco is now the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, it's been tough for them on the offensive trenches, just offense overall, really, since Joe Burrow went down. But what do you think about this matchup here between these two teams? Where do you want to start talking about this?
Well, I think Joe Flacco coming into Cincinnati last week, and after it took the first half for them really to get in a groove, he had the right idea when he dropped back to pass, right? And he had a relatively good passing grade last week, and I think the idea in this offense, especially with him being there for about a week now, so, I mean, he's made the adjustment pretty quick, is one, get rid of the football quickly with this pass protection that he has that is pretty subpar, and you're going against a great Steelers defensive line, as we saw it dominate against Cleveland last week. So a couple of things stood out to me in this start. Number one, 2.35 second average time to throw. Yes, get rid of it. If the offensive line can't protect you, protect yourself. Number two, 5.9 yard average depth of target. That's just going to be a fact of life when you get rid of the football that quickly. Allow some of your players, some of your receivers to make plays after the catch. And number three, look, this offense, the best part of this offense right now is one-on-one opportunities with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins. 20 combined targets against Green Bay in last week's game, the second most for those two this season. The only game where they had more was the team's win over Jacksonville when those guys took advantage of that secondary on the outside. So the idea here for Flacco is going to be the same. Look, TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, all those great pass rushers are coming at you, and they're coming at you quick. You're going to have to get rid of the football. If you get man-to-man coverage, chuck it downfield and see if one of those two guys can win. If you get zone coverage, work underneath, keep drives alive, make positive plays. But I do at least think Joe Flacco has the right idea of getting rid of the football quickly, and when it's advantageous, get the ball to your two best players in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That's the one way the Bengals can have success offensively in this game.
Yeah, I think that it's obviously going to be tough sledding for them because it is the best pass rush defensive line in the NFL. I know they don't have the most total pressures. That belongs to the Denver Broncos. But, boy, coming off of last week, it is not great with this Bengals offensive line going up against what the Pittsburgh Steelers have with all of their diverse pass rushers and how they can get after Joe Flacco. So it is going to be an interesting game on that side of the ball. I think for the Steelers specifically, what I'm really looking at on their offensive side of the ball is throwing it 15 or more yards down the field, because I think that's really what's going to tell the tale of, I think the Steelers are going to win this game, but to me it's sort of a question of just by how much, and that will come down to, is Rodgers willing to push the ball deep down the field? When you look at their passing grade overall, the Steelers this season, on passes of 15 or more yards, 61.7 overall passing PFF grade. That's fine. Like we've said before here on this show, a 60 grade is about, it's even. It's replaceable. That's what you want it to be. So not a ton of difference making passes 15 or more yards down the field. The Bengals, 44.8 coverage grade on passes of 15 or more yards down the field, 18 receptions allowed of 15 or more yards. That's the 12th most in the NFL. So if we get into a situation where Rodgers is going to be able to throw the ball deep down the field, I just don't know if the Bengals have what they need to be able to keep up with them in that regard. So with how ferocious the Steelers are up front right now, just pinning their ears back, getting after the quarterback, going up against an offensive line in Cincinnati that is, it's been struggling this year to say the least. I'm taking the Steelers in this game, 24-21. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than maybe if the game was on Sunday. If the game was on Sunday, I feel like the Steelers' margin of victory might be a little bit higher, but just Thursday Night Football, it's a little, you never know what to expect really. And it was one of those situations where we talked to Terron Armstead last week, and we talked to him about Thursday Night Football specifically, and he was like, look, on a shortened week, you basically condense the playbook down to a third, and you say, these are the things that we just do really well. You don't really have a lot of time to scout the team that you're going up against, and I think that it's just more of, hey, what do you do really well? And so I think it's going to be a lot of Aaron Rodgers' instincts in this one, but I do think it's going to be enough. I got the Steelers 24, the Bengals 21. What do you got, Dalton?
I've got it 21-16, a few less points in my result, but still Pittsburgh. I think when you talk about those constants, and I think the interesting part there for the game plan for the Bengals is, look, Flacco's only been there a week anyway, so it's an abbreviated version of the offense. But you look at what the Steelers, they do two things well. They rush the passer at an elite level, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the football over, right? It's been shaky. At times been a couple of mistakes. The first few weeks, he played his best game this past week against Cleveland. I think he can do something similar in this game, and we don't know if Trey Hendrickson is playing, and even if he is, Rodgers can work around that. I think the Steelers do enough to get out of here with a win.
All right, what's the next game we got? Oh, Rams-Jags in London, the international game. Jags, another pivotal game against a really good opponent, which they played over the last couple of weeks here. What are you looking at here for this one? I think the Jags have been on the winning side of things. So have the Rams, obviously. I think the Rams are one of the better teams in the NFL. They've just had a tough schedule at times, and not having Puka Nacua or having maybe a limited Puka Nacua, we'll see, because it's a day-to-day situation, McVay says. Where do you want to start the conversation with this game with two really good teams, in my opinion?
I'm going to go on the Jags side of the ball, and I think Liam Cohen's done a fantastic job of managing this offense and really getting the run game going and understanding that the underneath throws are going to be there as well. It does remind me, again, a lot of what he did in his actually, I should say, it reminds me more about of the year before he was the OC in Tampa when Dave Canales had Baker Mayfield in that first season. I think, was Liam Cohen on that staff, or was he still with the Rams at the time? I can't remember. But either way, it's this idea that the one thing missing for me from this Jags offense is the downfield passing, the downfield element. They're doing a lot after the catch. They're running the football well with Travis Etienne. But when is Trevor Lawrence going to start hitting on these downfield throws more often? On 10-plus yard throws this year, just a 63.7 passing grade. Context, that's the 7th lowest among qualified quarterbacks in football, right? 42% completion rate, 63.4 passer rating, 8 turnover-worthy plays. It's the one part missing, and I'm just wondering when is going to be the week. And they've played some tough defense. Obviously last week playing Kansas City. That's obviously not, the easiest secondary to throw into, and they found a way to get a win, in part because he made a huge throw to Brian Thomas down the sideline. Can we get more of those? Or I think even against Seattle, it was more about Sam Darnold being able to work downfield and Trevor Lawrence just not quite as consistent. Obviously the Jags have suffered from some drops as well from their receivers, but I think this is going to be a big question for me is, can Trevor Lawrence attack this Rams defense downfield even on a handful of occasions? Yes, he's going to have to get rid of the football quickly against this elite pass rush, but Trevor's ability to once in a while hit home runs and honestly the Jags offense, they got to use Travis Hunter downfield more, right? Even last week coming off of, we're going to use Hunter downfield, and then his average depth of target I think this week was 4 yards. So can they add that in, albeit against a team right now that's second in coverage grade against these throws? That's the element they're missing. If the Jags can get a downfield element going to their passing game, you're talking about them possibly winning this division, but I think this offense, it's a bit conservative. It hasn't been able to hit a lot of explosive plays down the field. And I'm sure Liam Cohen, that's something he's thinking. He's a smart guy. He knows what's missing in this offense as well. But this is a defense that at times when you have those opportunities in the very few clean pockets you get, you have to find a way to attack and create those explosives. Yeah,
and I think they're going to need to because the sort of difference-making factor that I have in this game when you look at the certain data points is I hate how these stats sometimes look where it's like, if Derrick Henry rushes for over 100 yards, the Ravens win 10 out of 10 times. Well, duh, it's because they're controlling the game so much and they're leaning into exactly what they do. But for the sake of what I'm about to say, balance is really what I'm focused on here, because when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, their 2 losses in this game, or their 2 losses that they have this season, are their 2 lowest team rushing grade weeks of the year. So when the Jags can't stay balanced in their offense, when they lean too much and they put too much maybe on Trevor Lawrence's plate, or they put too much into the deep passing game, like you sort of mentioned right there, that's when they sort of had those inconsistencies and they tend to struggle a little bit. The issue is Rams have been really good at defending the run this season. A couple of years ago, they made a philosophical change to be a little bit more between the tackles in what they did, and they also made a philosophical change to be better up front in between the tackles when defending the run, I think because they knew where this game was going and how it was going to evolve, and they were ahead of the curve in that regard. So they're already playing well in that area. 78.6 run defense grade. That's second best in the NFL this season. Their EPA per rush allowed is just 15th, but still top half of the league there. They're top 10 in positively graded run defending plays, and they're also top 10 in a good way in negatively graded run defense plays. So they are good at defending the run. And you mentioned that they're also good at defending the pass. I think the Rams are just having a really good defensive start to the season. But I think to your point, the lack of projected success for the Jags on the ground is going to mean a lot towards what Trevor Lawrence can do pushing the ball deep down the field. I think that this game and how the Rams have been playing is going to demand that Lawrence have his best game of the season when doing that. Ultimately, I don't think it's enough. I'm going to say that the Rams win this game 23-21. I think it's going to be close, especially if Puka Nacua is a limited version of himself or even not playing in this game. But I do have faith in how the Rams are playing right now to be a little bit more consistent in a different environment, in a different preparation week for this international game. And I'll say Rams 23, Jags 21.
This is a hard one because on the other side on the Rams offense, assuming if they don't have Puka Nacua, it's going to be a little bit harder for them in the passing game because he's arguably the best receiver in football against zone coverage. And first of all, he's arguably the best receiver in football right now. Second of all, it's in big part because he is arguably the best receiver against zone coverage, and the Jags are such a zone-heavy defense, and they've been so disciplined in their assignments this year in zone coverage and taking the football away, right? So you lose Puka Nacua, you need somebody else to step up in that role because Devontae Adams has been a lot better against man and winning those one-on-ones this year than he has against zone, but that's also also in part because they look for Nakua to find the space in those coverages. This is a hard game to pick. I'm going to take the Rams defense to get him through it. I think that defensive line makes the difference once again. I've got the Rams 23-17, and they got to run the football too well with Kyron Williams. They're the best run blocking team in the league right now. I think those two things make a difference, and I trust Stafford to work around that Nakua problem a little bit more, although there are going to be times where it's bumpy against this really good coverage unit that, even despite Sam Darnold's great performance last week, they held Seattle to 20 points. So the Jags defense is going to give him a shot, but I question Lawrence's ability to beat this pass rush and work the ball downfield in this game against this defense.
Me too. Yeah, I've talked about this over the last couple of weeks. These are sort of pivotal weeks to really figure out who Jacksonville is, and I think in a lot of ways they have shown that they have the ability to be a really good team in certain areas. In some games they put it all together. Some games it's been a little bit of pieces here and there. But this game, I think, is even more important than the other ones that we have seen from Jacksonville, simply because it's going to demand, I think, it's going to demand Lawrence to be better pushing the ball deep down the field. Can he do that? It's going to be very important to watch. The New Orleans Saints travel to Chicago to take on the Chicago Bears. What do you want to talk about here for this one, Dalton?
Let's go on the Saints' offensive side, which I know we don't get to talk about a whole lot because, well, the Saints, they sometimes have trouble scoring, finishing drives, and they don't score a ton of points, and they have so much young talent that's trying to develop at the same time. But I think
they're fun this year.
They are fun this year. They are fun. They're fun this year, but they don't execute yet at the highest level to start winning ball games. But I think a big matchup in this game is Spencer Rattler against Dennis Allen, okay? And Dennis Allen in this 3-game win streak for the Bears, the Bears don't have a great 4-man rush, so he's really turning up the heat with the blitzes. Naturally, he's an aggressive coach, and you figured he would come into this year more aggressive than Matt Eberflus. That wasn't necessarily the case in the first 2 games as they were trying to figure out and work through injuries in their coverage unit, but they're blitzing at a top 10 rate the last 3 weeks, and they've won all 3 games, so something has to be working on that end. Now, Spencer Rattler has actually been spectacular against the blitz this year. It's one of the best things, you could argue the best thing that he's doing is handling these protections. I think the Saints are actually doing a really good job up front, tight ends, backs, Rattler getting rid of the ball. As a team, they're doing a great job of handling the blitz, and when he has those one-on-one matchups that come behind those blitz looks when you pick him up, he's taking his chances with those throws, and he's succeeding. 3rd best passing grade in the NFL against blitzes this season for big-time throws. When he needs that bottom one there, I think is really important too. When he needs to take off and run, when he feels like, okay, I got to break the pocket quickly or nobody's open still, I got to take off and run. The scrambling has been solid for him. I'm curious to see if Dennis Allen keeps up the aggressiveness on these blitz packages, and especially in obvious passing situations, because that's really where Spencer Rattler has thrived. You can see he's confident behind these protections. Kellen Moore has them picking it up very, very well. They'll leave extra protectors in there and give Rattler the space to work with in the pocket, and if he needs to take off and run, he will. But I think this is something he's played well enough through 6 games, especially in these scenarios, where you have to think about, okay, yes, we've blitzed a lot the last 3 weeks. Is that something we can do consistently against this quarterback who is seeing it well and an offense who is playing relatively well through that? That's, I think, a big question. I think Dennis Allen, very quietly, despite it being the Saints offense and every perception you might have of this game, Dennis Allen's in the spotlight with this one for how he handles Spencer Rattler and the way he's playing.
No, I agree with you. And that's why I'm going to take the Saints as my dog here this week to win this game, even though the Bears are favored by 5.5 points. It opened up, I think, around like 7.5, and it's gone a little bit towards New Orleans, and I think that's because of the respect that Vegas and a lot of people out there have for how well Spencer Rattler has been playing. Now, he played really well last week, albeit, of course, it was in a loss to the New England Patriots. Can he continue to do that specifically on the road? I've talked about what a great environment it is playing in New Orleans. It feels like, of course, people say it's got some voodoo to it. They've got that Saints magic. Even when the team is not very good, they stay competitive, and I feel like they have been at home this season. On the road, though, what are they going to be on the road when they head to Soldier Field to play the Chicago Bears there? Specifically, though, this is why I think this game is going to be decently close, and I'd be taking the Saints in the points, if not taking the Saints outright just as a fun underdog pick here. The Saints defense, 10th in run defense grade at a 71.7. So they've been pretty good at actually defending the run this season. And they were not good in this area last year. And so I think a lot of people have that version of the Saints in there. It hasn't reared its ugly head. They have been a better run defense unit this season. And Dalton, They're third, in a good way, in EPA per rush allowed, negative 0.212, which is third best in the NFL. So not only are they overall defending the run pretty well, they're situationally defending the run pretty well. And I think that means a lot because as we saw this past week with Chicago when they were playing on Monday night, you get a couple of DeAndre Swift big-time plays in here in the passing game and the running game, and boom, okay, that can make all the difference in the world. A lot of yak, a lot of, expected points added, especially when it's on the ground because it's something that's easy for them to do. I don't think the run game has been there consistently for Chicago, but I wonder if this is going to be a game where they clamp down against the run more than Chicago might be expecting, and this kind of has to be a big Caleb Williams game. And I'm not saying that I don't believe in Caleb Williams to get it done, but I've got a lot of respect for what the New Orleans Saints are doing, and I wonder if they just hit them early in a way which the Bears aren't expecting as a team that's been really good defending the run and how good Spencer Rattler has been against pressure. Now, of course, I think the X factor here is who's the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, Dalton?
Dennis Allen.
Where was Dennis Allen last year when Spencer Rattler was in and out of the quarterback lineup for the New Orleans Saints?
The great city of New Orleans.
He probably knows Spencer Rattler better than anybody. And so I think that to me is sort of the X factor of if you saying like, hey, like you're crazy for taking the Saints. That's the part of this game that I would say, yeah, okay, I'm a little bit nervous about Dennis Allen knowing not only Spencer Rattler's strengths, but his weaknesses and how to exploit those. But for fun, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints. They've been playing really well. If they defend the run well against Chicago, I think that this is a close game here. I'll go Saints 24, Bears 20 in this one. We'll see how Caleb Williams can do if the run game is not a big factor in this one.
On the Bears, let me tell you something, Trevor. I lived in Chicago for 5 years, and lately another thing we've gotten flack for this week is Caleb Williams' grade in their win Monday night over the Commanders, and that's obviously caused a lot of debate. That was a fun night on Twitter last night. There's 3 rules in the city of Chicago, Trevor. Number 1, if a bartender asks if you've had a shot of Malort before, say you have, because if you say no, you're getting a free one, you're not going to love it.
You're getting a shot of Malort, yeah.
Number 2, do not ever, ever, ever say LeBron is better than Jordan. Ever, ever, ever. If you are in Chicago city limits, do not say it. Okay, you wouldn't anyway. You're in good graces. Number 3, don't ever at all slander their quarterback when they're winning ball games. Okay. Now, that being said, got a close win last week. Got a close win this past week against the Commanders. The Bears are winning games at times that in the past that they've lost. I kind of like that mojo that's going there. And Caleb, when he is clean in the pocket, is playing very well. Usually the bad decisions are when he's under pressure, and the Saints have the lowest graded pass rush unit in the NFL right now. They're not getting enough pressure on quarterbacks. I think it's going to be tight. I think the Saints, again, have been playing better than their record, but on the road in Chicago and with that lack of pass rush, I think the Bears are getting a close win 27-24.
All right. So we're a little bit different on that one, which, by the way, you kicked my ass last week. I was up a game on you, but you went 11-4. I went 8-7. I'm just going to say. Now I'm not going to bring this up, but I know what's coming.
I know what's coming.
I'm just going to say I switched the Seattle and the Jacksonville pick just because, out of respect for the game. I'm not going to bring it up, of course. I'm not going to bring that part up, but that did happen.
Here's what I can do. I could cut you a deal. I could take the tie off your ledger and then turn that tie into a win. You want a half for it? And then I'll have the tie at the end of the year as a tiebreaker if I win this season by half game.
Oh no, I'm gonna beat you outright. But you have 61 correctly picked games this year. I have 59. You're 61-31 and 1, of course. And I am 59-33 and 1.
And 1. Go on.
And 1. Unfortunately,
we're gonna say and 1 on this show more than Mike Breen. Jeez, it's gonna be tough.
Good reference though. Good
like
reference.
that?
I like
See
it.
that?
The Miami Dolphins traveling to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns. Where are we starting with this one? You want to talk about the Browns? You want to talk about the Dolphins?
I want to talk about the Browns. I think a key guy in this game, a guy who's been playing really well for them, I would argue over the last 3-4 weeks, their best offensive player, Quinshon Judkins. I think, look, this Miami defensive line has been struggling. Obviously, the Browns offensive line has been struggling, but you also don't want Dylan Gabriel in any scenario against any team dropping back and throwing the ball 65 times. So I think getting Judkins in the run game going, we've seen in past weeks that the Dolphins really struggle to stop the run. This is where it's going to start for Cleveland. at home, going to be a physical ball game. The defense obviously plays well just about every week, and they honestly weren't that bad last week. It's just their offense put them in bad spots, and they just kept going 3 and out, and nothing was working. So I think Quinshon Judkins is really the guy to look at here. He's 13th in the NFL in rushing grade right now, 5th in yards after contact per attempt, so he's even working through the mediocre at best run blocking the Browns are getting. 15 missed tackles forced, 24 combined first downs and touchdowns, is 5th in the NFL, and he got a late start this season, so they're leaning on him heavily. He's breaking tackles. He showed off the speed on a big run against Minnesota. I think Quinshon Judkins really is the key here in getting this running game going and playing with more balance in this offense to not have Dillon Gabriel throwing the ball 50, 58, 65 times in this game against a Dolphins team that you shouldn't have to. If the Browns can come out and run the ball, I really feel like they have a good shot to win this game.
Yeah, this is an interesting game because I do think that the rushing element is going to be really important. I kind of think that Devon Achane's basically the only guy that you really have to worry about in Miami because, and that's no disrespect at all to Jalen Waddle, but if Waddle's the only guy who's going off for you, I don't know how many points you're really going to put up every single week. Now, when it was Waddle and Tyreek Hill, okay, that's a little bit of a different story. There's a little bit of a 1-2 there, but in the games where Miami has really been able to put points on the scoreboard, it feels like Devon Achane has had one of his best games or more explosive games. So if you can neutralize him out of the backfield, you have a really good chance to beat this Dolphins team. When it comes to the other side of it, Browns, their run defense grade, like you mentioned, against or like we were saying against Devon Achane. Sorry, I'm getting them mixed up here. 86.6 run defense grade from Cleveland. That's number 1 in the NFL. EPA per rush allowed. That's also number 1 in the NFL. So they are one of the best at defending the run. So Achane as a running back out of the backfield, I don't have a lot of faith in. Maybe as a receiver out of the backfield, like we have talked about, I think that could be a decent play for them there. But here's an interesting stat outside of that, because I do agree with you. I think that means the most towards who wins this game. But specifically, I also found these numbers that were very interesting. Tua has struggled this year, specifically when throwing against zone. He has like a 55.5 overall passing grade against zone. All 10 of his turnover-worthy plays this season have come against zone. He has 0 turnover-worthy plays when he has faced man coverage, and he actually has an elite 91.5 PFF passing grade when going up against man coverage. Now, it's a much smaller sample size. He faces zone a lot more, and I think that's intentional. That's what teams want to do. But the Browns run man coverage the 6th most of any team in the NFL. So that's kind of what they do. So I think that we'll see a little bit more zone from the Browns just because you got to know your opponent and what they really struggle with. But Dalton, that was an interesting split there, which makes me think that perhaps the Dolphins could actually have some success here against the Browns. I will go with the Dolphins. I think this is kind of a back against the wall game for everybody. Tua, the coaching staff, the front office, basically everybody in Miami. You kind of got to win this football game, or we might be done with this era of the Miami Dolphins. I got them winning 2017 with their back against the wall here. What do you think about this one? What's your score?
And to their credit, the Dolphins have played with much better effort the last couple weeks and they've had chances to win their last 2 games and a little bit more success. The Browns' pass rush is obviously very dangerous and a bad matchup for anybody, but an extremely bad matchup for Miami. Tua's going to have to get rid of the football quickly. And, all that man coverage, I think there's 2 things you worry about. 1, those one-on-one opportunities for Jalen Waddle, right, because he's still an explosive playmaker. And 2, I think you have an interesting matchup of these linebackers who have mostly played really well. Devin Bush and Carson Schwessinger against Devon Achane. A lot of big plays for Miami have been Achane swinging out of the backfield and getting in space with the ball in his hands. You cannot let him be the guy that makes 1 or 2 home run hitting plays in this game and turns it upside down. So those are obviously the 2 guys that are driving the Dolphins offense right now. I'm going to take the Browns at home in Cleveland. I really like the way this team plays, especially at home. It's not going to be high scoring, I don't think, because the Browns are just never in high scoring games. But give me the Browns 17-16. I think they win this game in the trenches.
The New England Patriots, Mike Vrabel specifically, coming back to Tennessee to face the Tennessee Titans. This game had all sorts of intrigue before Brian Callahan was fired. And now it is Mike Vrabel on a new team that's 4-2 with one of the hottest young quarterbacks in the NFL, returning to the place that I can't remember. Was it like did he actually get fired? Or was it a mutual thing? I don't even remember. They ran him out the door. And the guy that they got to replace Mike Vrabel is now no longer even there to face him in this matchup. There's a lot of things that go on to why the Titans are dysfunctional. I think that Brian Callahan was an issue, but I don't think that he was the only issue. All of that to say, Dalton, I don't think there is any let up at all whatsoever from the Patriots this week. I think the Titans are going to get their best. What do you want to talk about here, though? You want to talk about the Patriots side of things, or you want to talk about how the Titans are going to defend that onslaught?
Let's talk about this Patriots offense, because it's a very, very hot topic. And you still have a Titans team who, especially with Jeffrey Simmons on the inside, can be a threat in the pass rush. Now, we've talked a lot about Drake May and how great he's playing. He's been fantastic. Last week against the Saints, we talked about the receivers and how Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte, Pop Douglas, Hunter Henry, all these guys are producing on the outside for him, which is great stuff. But I got to give credit to this pass protection. This was one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. They turned it over with 4 new starters, and in pass protection, they look fantastic. 3rd best pass blocking grade in the league. 4th in pressure percentage, only 10th in knockdown percentage. Now, Drake May has been sacked 18 times this year, but a lot of those are on him. Actually, we've charged 7 of those to him, and there's some others where it's just an unblocked player or, overload blitzes and things like that. So the offensive line has actually been better than you might think with Drake May's sack total. And one thing I do like that Josh McDaniels is doing is giving Drake May spots with extra protectors in there, 6 and 7 pass protectors, to give him more time to just allow a young quarterback to feel comfortable in the pocket. The Patriots run the 4th most plays this year in the NFL with extra protection set in the backfield. So I really think, the combination of McDaniels and May has been fantastic, but I also want to credit Will Campbell and Garrett Bradbury, Michael Wenu. These guys on the offensive line have been outstanding in pass protection so far this year. Generally, when Drake May is sacked, it's because he's holding the ball too long and he wants to break outside the pocket and make plays, and that's fine. He's an athlete. He should be allowed to go out there and make plays. A lot of times it's going to work. Here and there, it's not going to, but he's playing great football, so I'm not going to complain about Drake May holding the ball to make a play. This offensive line really has been a huge reason, an underrated reason this Patriots team is on this hot streak right now.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really good point by you talking about overall sack numbers versus what's actually on the offensive line versus what's actually on the quarterback. Because I don't think that a lot of people really think about that. Like when they think about sacks, they think about, oh, okay, well, the offensive line was beat. Well, if they were beat to the quarterback, 3, 4, 4.5 seconds into a play, that's not really on the offensive line. It's not really their job to block a defender for 4, 5, 6 seconds. I mean, it's unrealistic to think that that would happen at the pro level. And so you have to have all of these things in context. And so where there might be a good amount of sacks for the Patriots this season, you really have to watch them to understand who might actually be at fault. And for a good amount of them, it is Drake May holding onto the ball a little bit too long, trying to make a play. But like you said, you're okay with that. I think that people sometimes look at sacks and they just go, oh my gosh, like it's a horrendous play. You can't have that. Obviously, you don't want sacks. But again, a theme of this show here today seems to be context and clearing things up. You can live with some extra sacks on Drake May, knowing how good he is when he holds onto the ball a little bit longer and when he has those opportunities to pass the ball deep down the field. That goes straight into what I was going to talk about here. 97.9 passing grade from Drake May when he is throwing more than 20 yards down the field. That is 2nd best in the NFL. He has been phenomenal at that. And in order to throw the ball deep down the field, guess what you got to do, Dalton? You got to hang on to it a little bit longer. And so you live and die by the sword a little bit, but when you have those sacks that he takes, you live with it, especially if the rest of everything is going well. You're playing complementary football. The defense is playing well enough. It can allow you to hold on to the ball and search for those bigger plays. The Titans, on the other side of things, 26th in coverage grade on passes of 20 or more yards. They have a 27.0 coverage grade. Again, that was 26th in the NFL. And they've given up the 15th most 20-yard receptions at 8 this season. So it's just not a good script. I don't know how else to say it. The only thing that I really have going for the Titans is Mike McCoy, who's their interim head coach. He's been a head coach before. He's implementing, it sounds like, some more practice structure in there. Exactly, when the position coaches are meeting with the rest of the team and the offensive defensive coordinators and the head coach, and then when they're meeting with the players. And it feels like it's just a little bit more of a structured thing just because of that head coaching experience. So maybe they feel a lot less flat as Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward said last week as they went into the game. They felt like they had a flat week of practice and they came out flat during the game. I think it's going to be less of that, but ultimately I just think that the dam is going to break and the water is going to flow and the Patriots are going to win this one big. I've got the Patriots 31 and the Titans a little bit more competitive. I got them scoring 17, but I don't know how they stop the Patriots outside of maybe Drake May having a handful of turnover-worthy plays in this game.
No, I agree. And one more thing I want to throw about Drake May and the sacks and the protection. So obviously we talk so much on this show about average time to throw, right? But we also, it's on here on if you have a PFF Plus subscription, you can look at it in the passing reports. We have a time in pocket report. Average time to sack, right? When these quarterbacks are getting sacked, how long is that taking? Drake May, 4.44 seconds on average, second highest of any current starter behind Jackson Dart right now. So when he does get sacked, again, it is generally because he's trying to create outside the pocket or step up into the pocket late in plays, which I get it. He's a playmaker. He should be allowed to make plays, and that's going to come with more sacks. But that just tells me even further that the offensive line has been outstanding, and he has not taken a single sack this season on a play that went under 2.5 seconds. So I think you look at that and you go, okay, you can live with that because the overall pressure rate is pretty consistently low, especially when it comes to being charged to the offensive line. So I'm with you. The Patriots have a lot of advantages in this game. They're really rolling on offense right now. I've got them 27-13. They're just a better football team. And the Titans, I gave them 13 points in this game out of respect, really, but it wouldn't shock me if they scored less than that because we have no idea what their offense is going to look like.
They are going to score a little more than 13. I do. I think they will look a little bit better this week. Do you get the interim head coach bump? You got to account for that, Dalton. It's a real thing.
But it's the Mike Vrabel revenge game too now. We love a good revenge game.
I didn't say they were going to stop the Patriots. I just said that they might score a little bit more points than you would naturally expect for a team that has not been playing very well so far this season. Okay, before we get to the next game, which is an AFC West showdown between the Walt's Las Vegas Raiders and the hottest team in the NFL now, apparently, the Kansas City Chiefs. Got to talk to you guys about Fabric. Parenting, okay? It's filled with all sorts of high-pressure decisions. It can be difficult to tell if we made the right choice for our kids' future, but here is a simple decision that you guys can make today that could have a meaningful impact on your kids' future. Opening up a UGMA Kids Investment account with Fabric to start their investment journey and give them a financial head start. With Fabric by Gerber Life, it was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. This kids investment account from Fabric allows you to start investing in your child's future today. Their funds can be used for anything in this UGMA Kids Investment account. Books, summer camp, after-school activities, tuition, sports. When they're a little bit younger, and then maybe when they're a little bit older, that young adult phase, you can help them buy a new car, new house, start a business, whatever that looks like. They can't invest while they're minors, but this account allows you to invest on their behalf, gives their investment so much more time to grow. No contribution limits to it. It's got multiple tax advantages. Funds your SIPC insured with $500,000. There's no commission fees to it. Just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. Whole thing is online. Setting up an account could take you as little as just 5 minutes. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You guys can learn more at meetfabric.com. Raiders Chiefs. Ooh. Unlucky timing for the Las Vegas Raiders to be heading into Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Rashee Rice is back this week, and if the Chiefs' offense wasn't already, turning the page and starting to fire on all cylinders, this could absolutely take it to the next level. What do you think? You want to talk about the Chiefs or the Raiders here on this one?
I think it's the big story that everybody in Kansas City is talking about with their offense that is already getting better week to week since the return of Xavier Worthy. Now you get Rashee Rice back, one of the best receivers in football. I mean, that's the best way we can put that. Last year, before he got the knee injury, he was in line for one of the best years of any receiver last year. And you look at his career stats, this is just a year, his rookie year plus 3 games, but 89.6 2.3 receiving grades, ridiculously good so early in his career. 2.35 yards per route runs, outstanding. 24 missed tackles forced. He can win after the catch. And the thing you like about Rice is just about pretty close to an identical number of snaps and routes for him come both on the outside and in the slot. This is somebody who really is a true joker in this offense, as Sean Payton might put it. And I know you're about to say something about me using the term, but I just really think now that you have Worthy back as the deep threat, the speed threat you have to respect. You have Smith-Schuster playing well. You have Tyquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown and Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, all the backs. There's a million different guys now that the Chiefs can throw to and Mahomes has at his disposal, but he's getting the single best one of that entire group back and maybe the most versatile one of that entire group back. This Raiders secondary, man, if Rice looks like he's 100%, especially coming off last year's injury, obviously missed the first 6 games with suspension, boy, they're going to have fits trying to cover this team with all of the threats on the field, and this will be the first week this season where we really get to see the full complement of the Chiefs offense and what Mahomes could do with all of his weapons. Rashee Rice's return to me is the thing to watch here.
I think that first and foremost, the Raiders' identity on offense needs to be solidified here. And it feels like they don't have a great identity on offense and they don't have a really great feel, because even though the run game has been getting better over the last couple of weeks, and I'll get to that in a second, we mentioned this in the review show on Monday. Geno Smith's average after target was 2.8 yards this past week. It's just a far cry from what his career normally usually is. 8, 9, 10, 11 yards down the field. That's who Geno Smith is. And he threw a good amount of turnover-worthy plays the previous week against Indianapolis. And so, all right, you're a little bit gun-shy. You're changing up the game plan a little bit. You don't want to have to think that he has to play Superman and put the ball in harm's way. But you can't go down to 2.8 average after target. Like, there's no in-between there. And unfortunately, the way that I look at this Raiders passing attack now is either the lights on or the lights off. Is the average after target 10? Or is it below 5? Like, it does not feel like there's a comfortable middle for them to really have a diverse game plan week in and week out. So first and foremost, if they can't fix that, they're not going to win this football game. However, I mentioned that the run game has been a little bit better for them lately. Over the last 3 weeks, Genty, 75.7 rushing grade, 72.4 run blocking grade as a team. So not only is Ashton Genty playing a little bit better, the run blocking is getting a little bit better as well. What's the best defense for Patrick Mahomes, Dalton? Keeping his ass on the sideline. Don't even let him on the field. You talked about how potent that offense is. There's only so much they can do, and by that I mean nothing, when they are on the sideline. And I think that's going to be the best defense in this game. The Raiders have to be able to control the clock, and I think that they've been able to run the football better. And when you look at the Chiefs this season, 56.3 run defense grade, 28th in EPA per rush allowed, not good. And then when it comes to average depth of tackle, they are a little bit better at that. Their average depth of tackle, 3.67. That's 5th in the NFL. So they've been able to rally to the football when they know that it's going to be a run defense play. But when it comes to really stopping the run when they need to, that EPA per rush mark, they have struggled to do so, and their overall run defense grade has suffered because of it. Can the Raiders limit the amount of possessions that the Kansas City Chiefs have here? And then can they fix the consistency with their passing game? Ultimately, you're not going to find me betting on it. Chiefs 31, Las Vegas Raiders 20. What do you got?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I have it 34-17 Chiefs. I just think Ashton Genty is the one reason the Raiders can try to slow this game down and win it, especially with some of the struggles the Chiefs have had on their defensive line and run defense. But you've also got a great set of linebackers behind them, and Nick Bolton and Leo Chenal and Drew Tranquill. Those guys have been outstanding so far. And the Chiefs, look, if Geno Smith wants to throw downfield, he's going to have a hard time. This has been arguably the best team in football at allowing explosive plays and those longer passes down the field. So the secondary, Trent McDuffie and those guys are outstanding as well. And I think if last week against the Lions was kind of the uh-oh moment, the Chiefs are here again, this week's only going to confirm that. I really like the Chiefs in this game. I just don't think the Raiders have enough.
Yeah. Walt's saying no. What's Walt saying no at? Us picking the Raiders? Walt, you picking the Raiders?
Of course he is. You got to have the confidence.
I don't know about that. Walt's pretty honest about when the Raiders are struggling.
Come on now. Walt's middle name is confidence. He's going into this looking for an upset. It's like what was it?
I thought it was pork chop.
Was it 2 years ago? Was it 2 years ago on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day when the Raiders went in there and won? He's trying to channel that energy right there.
That's true. I mean, he's going to need to. They're going to need everything that they can get in this one. Eagles traveling to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings coming off of a bye week here. McCarthy could be back. I don't think it's like 100% confirmed because he's still dealing with that injury, and Carson Wentz also has a shoulder injury. So whoever starts this game for Minnesota, neither of them is going to be 100%. I'm going to talk about McCarthy here in a second, but talk to me about Philly. What's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles? It feels like everybody was very, very quick to the second Philly started not looking good, and really the second that they dropped the game and a loss, they're like, boom, all right, like a rock. They're not a top 10 team anymore. And I kind of think we've gone a little bit too far in that direction. But talk to me about Philly and what you see in this game.
I mean, obviously, they're one of the most talented teams in football. I think right now they're just having a case of needing to refine their identity that they had last year. What was the identity last year? Dominate in the trenches, run the football, ride Saquon Barkley late in games to wins, right? And right now, they don't have Saquon Barkley going, whether it be certain games where they're not calling enough design runs or it's not creative enough, or maybe he's just a little bit gassed out from the heavy workload that he had last year, right, all the way through the postseason. Right now, Saquon Barkley, 59.4 rushing grade, only ripping off 3.4 yards per carry, and that last number is the most stark to me. 0 runs of at least 20 yards. I mean, this was what defined his season last year, was the ability to get to the second level and house calls to the end zone, 30, 40, 60, 70 yards. He was setting record when it came to those long touchdown runs and the explosives. He does not have a run longer than 18 yards this season, Trevor. So I think that's the big thing. You have to find a way to get Barkley going, especially between the tackles on this Minnesota defense that has not looked great in run defense. It has not been a consistent operation in run defense. They've got some good pass rushers they acquired in the offseason on the inside, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, but these guys are not great run defenders, and I think stopping the run between the tackles has been a problem for Minnesota. If there's a week where they need to bounce back in Philly in the run game, it's this week, because what you don't want to do is get in those third and obvious situations where Brian Flores opens up the blitz packages and the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts is under pressure and they don't have the hot routes on and the passing game doesn't get too creative. They really need to find a way on early downs to get Saquon Barkley going, to get in shorter yardage situations and set up their offense for success so they're not getting blitzed like crazy on 3rd and 8.
Look, I totally agree, and I think that this is a week where they can have that bounce-back performance. When you look at the Vikings' run defense this season, their 23rd in team run defense grade with that 62.8, and their average depth of tackle, a stat that I mentioned in the previous game, 4.34 yards after the line of scrimmage. That's just 24th in the NFL. So it feels like it's a week where the Eagles haven't been as dominant in run blocking as they have been in the past, and I think that we just automatically think of the Eagles as like, oh, they're just one of the best offensive lines in the NFL running the football. Not quite this year, but this could be a good bounce back type of week for them in that area. You get Saquon going, you're able to run the football. It was a big reason why the trenches, honestly, was a big reason why I liked the Vikings a lot this year, but through injuries, it just has not manifested. And I think the offensive side of things sort of goes into that as well, with Ryan Kelly's injury and Donovan Jackson's injury and Christian Darrisaw being in and out of the lineup, Brian O'Neill being in and out of the lineup a little bit. They've been dealing with a lot in the trenches. So I think that, to your point, is sort of the biggest X factor in the storyline here in this game. But also, if McCarthy plays in this game, I just want to bring this up here. I think this is a really bad game for McCarthy to come back and start for the first time since coming back from his injury, mainly because it's Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator on the other side. And I feel as though Fangio's got the ability and the wisdom to put JJ McCarthy in hell. The stats that make me think that that's going to be the case is McCarthy, 3.13 time to throw average so far this season when he has been out there. And when you take out week one, that week one performance, mainly just the second half of week one, Dalton, it goes all the way up to 3.31. And that's not even under pressure. That's just overall 3.31. You're not going to win that way. And then when you take that stat a little bit further and you go, okay, well, what more can we find with this is the root here? 40.9% pressure to sack ratio for JJ McCarthy. That part of his game, health aside, has to be so much better if he wants to win in this league. He has to process things better. He's got to be able to feel pressure better. He can't take those sacks himself. He just has to play with better awareness and a quicker time for this offense to operate the way that it needs to. Kevin O'Connell, he can make things easier for quarterbacks, but they've still got to be able to process what they are seeing. And right now, it feels as though what we've seen from JJ McCarthy is that he's trying to drink water through a fire hose. He's just, you could almost see it. He's just trying to take in too much right now, and it's a little overwhelming for him. He's got to come back and look a lot more in control, a lot more decisive, and it's a bad week against Vic Fangio to have that be the case. So I am going to take the Philadelphia Eagles in this one on the road. I'm going to take them 27-17. I think they're going to be able to run the ball, and I'm worried if J.J. McCarthy's going to be out there, what Vic Fangio is going to sort of do with with the scheme of the defense, how he's going to disguise things with the safeties coming up and coming down. Okay, too high, now it's one high, the rotations, the sim pressures. I'm a little bit worried about everything that could be thrown at J.J. McCarthy if he starts in this game.
Yeah, I think if the Eagles win this game, they're going to have to win it on the interior. First of all, running between the tackles where they should have a solid opportunity to do so. And then the interior pass rush with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Moro Ajomo, they've been outstanding on the inside. That's really been the best part of their pass rush this year, aside from the situational part of Josh Uche off the edge, who's been really good. I think this is actually the hardest game of the week to pick because the Eagles, is not great vibes around the Eagles right now. They're trying to figure out what they're trying to do on offense, and now you have to go on the road and play a really creative defense that Brian Flores has in Minnesota. I'm actually going to take the Vikings, I should say. I'm going to take the Vikings to squeak this one out 23-20. This game is so hard for me, and I actually don't know yet if the Vikings would have a better chance to win with McCarthy or with Carson Wentz. There's a lot of variability on the Vikings side, but the Eagles have to figure this thing out on offense, and if they don't ride Saquon Barkley and they're in a lot of obvious passing situations or they fall behind in this game early, I think they could be in a lot of trouble.
Man, if the Vikings win this game, we'd start to have some serious conversations about the Philadelphia Eagles next week. I think this is a prime game for the Philadelphia Eagles to win.
And a big factor too is that Quinyon Mitchell could miss this game, and the Eagles have really struggled at corner, and corner is not a place, no matter who the quarterback is, corner is not a place you want to be struggling against this Minnesota team with Jefferson and Addison, all the guys that they have on the outside too. I think this is going to be a tight football game. I really do want. I thought looking at this slate, this was the hardest game to pick. So I'm riding Minnesota as the home team, but I really think this is the hardest one. I have no idea what this one.
The Carolina Panthers traveling to New York to take on your Jets. Do they make it happen, Dalton? Do they get the first win of the season? You want to talk about the Jets or the Panthers?
I'll go on the Jets' offensive side of things and talk about this Panthers run defense, because now that it looks like Garrett Wilson is going to be out for a couple of games with an injury, I really have no idea how the Jets are going to throw the football. We all know they had -10 net passing yards last week, and it's not just Justin Fields, for as bad as he is, and he's, again, not a 17-game NFL starter at this point, but offensive line got dominated. Nobody other than Garrett Wilson can get open, and because of all of that, there's not a whole lot of creativity in the passing game when it comes to the play calling either. So, what are the Jets going to do as they try to do every week? They're going to try to run the football with Breece Hall and with Justin Fields, because that's basically all they have left. Now, you look at the Panthers in run defense, and obviously last year they were the worst run defense in football by far. For as bad as some other teams were, the Cowboys, the Saints, the Panthers were just the worst. Okay, this year it's been up and down. In the 3 games they've won, they've been really good. In the 3 games they've lost, they haven't stopped the run. In their 3 wins as a team, 83.5 run defense grade and only allowing 3.2 yards per carry. In their 3 losses, 59.8 run defense grade, 4.7 yards per carry allowed. Now, the exact numbers there as far as the grades, honestly, the exact numbers don't matter, because I can boil it down to good run defense, bad run defense. It's that simple, right? So the exact point totals don't even matter much there. It's just that part of it, and especially at the linebacker level. Christian Roseboom, Trevin Wallace, when they have been stable in run defense, and then you get some help from Nick Scott, get a little help from Lathan Ransom, the rookie safety, mixing in there too. He's always been a good run defender, even at Ohio State. When they stop the run, they win ball games. It's very simple. Now, they have to take it on the road and do it at New York, because they haven't won a road game yet, but that's really going to be the thing. If they stop the run here, I have no idea how the Jets score points, because they're running out Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson and Arian Smith and Mason Taylor. Without Garrett Wilson, I think this Jets passing game is non-existent. So if Carolina's solid in the front 7, that starts with Derek Brown and those guys up front, then I think it really works its way to the linebackers. When those guys play well and keep them in the game, prevent those explosives, they win ball games.
I think that whether or not the Panthers can put Justin Fields under pressure will go a lot towards making sure that you win a game that feels very winnable. Now, of course, as we say here on the show, you're famous for this quote, that winnable games are only winnable if you win them. Justin Fields under pressure this year, 38.0 passing grade, 22.3 pressure to sack ratio. So he just has not been good under pressure. But when he's in a clean pocket, He hasn't been too bad. Now, the thing with the Panthers is pass rush has kind of been their issue over the last couple of years. This year it's a little bit better, but specifically, they're 26th in total pressures without blitzing over the last 3 weeks. So obviously they have struggled to generate pressure when they are not blitzing. They also don't blitz a lot. 19th in total pass blitz percentage at 29.4%. So if the Panthers aren't great at getting pressure without blitzing, and they don't really blitz a lot, Justin Fields might not be under pressure a ton in this game unless something really changes from the trends that we've seen over this season and over the last 3 weeks. When he has been clean, it feels like he's able to operate things pretty well. But when things start to fall apart, boy, do they ever fall apart for him. So I think the defensive game plan is going to be an interesting thing to watch here for the Panthers. You mentioned how good they are in run defense. 6th in run defense grade over the last 3 weeks. That is the Carolina Panthers. And so I think they're going to be able to shut down the run because they've been able to do so throughout the season. Now, of course, a week-to-week league, right? That's what we always say. You know, they always say that. Week-to-week league, you never know what you're going to get. But the data and the trends at least tell us that Carolina's been a pretty good run defense team, especially lately. So you think that they're going to be pretty solid there. I will say this, though. Here's another stat that I'm going to throw out at you before we get to our score predictions. Remember we talked about the Panthers tight end game over the last couple of weeks, specifically this past week when we were reviewing on Monday, how good, how well those guys were grading as tight ends in this game and how willing the Panthers were to put them on the field and lean into the tight end passing game and just heavier personnel. 5th highest offensive grade in 12 personnel this season is the Carolina Panthers. 11th most snaps with 12 personnel, so they're very willing to lean into it, and they're very good when they do. The Jets, 20th in overall defensive grade when defending 12 personnel. All of that, I think, spits out a Carolina Panthers win. I think the Panthers win this game 23-13. What do you got, Dalton?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I look at this Jets passing game on offense, and it's great. If they can keep Fields clean and give him a chance to throw, that's great, because certainly they need to do it after last week, and Denver's pass rush just dominated him. But, I mean, who's he throwing to, right? I mean, again, this is the problem. If you don't have Garrett Wilson, I have no idea who you're throwing the ball to at this point. I mean, it's hard for me to think they're going to win many games with Josh Reynolds and Tyler Johnson as their top 2 receivers, right? So that's a big problem. And I think on the outside, on the Panthers side of things, you get a great matchup between Teteroa McMillan and Sauce Gardner, so maybe Bryce Young is going to have to figure out what other options he has here in this passing game, maybe Xavier Legette, or maybe they just run the football in a dominant fashion like they have the last 2 weeks. But either way, I think the Panthers have a lot of avenues to winning here. I'm taking them 24-10 on the road, get the first road win of the year.
All right, similar to my score there. Both see the Panthers winning this one. Giants in Denver to take on the Denver Broncos. Where are we starting here? You want to talk about the Giants? You want to talk about the Denver Broncos?
Give me this Giants run game. And I know, obviously, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo have been in the spotlight, and rightfully so, with the Giants winning their 2 of their last 3 games and running the ball really well. But they're also running the ball more often, and Brian Daboll has done an outstanding job of adjusting this team to Jackson Dart's skill set, to his offensive line skill set, and running some different schemes that really help out his offensive linemen. Now, he's pulled the binder off the shelf from 2022 when he had Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and not a whole lot of receivers. They're running the football more often. They are running gap schemes a lot more often, pulling guards, power plays, overloading one side on tight ends, fullback snaps. And I don't have a fullback on the roster, so that's Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, the tight ends, but lead blockers, really defining better the assignments that the offensive linemen and the lead blockers have in this run game. I thought there was 2 problems with their run game, Trevor, in the first 3 weeks of the season. Number 1, nobody respected the quarterback. They did not respect Russell Wilson as a rushing threat. You have to do that with Jackson Dart. And number 2, they did not get to the second level. There wasn't a clear plan on a lot of their runs, and it was a lot more zone running. The first 3 weeks, it was 70% zone running, down to 55 there with a lot more power schemes mixed in. They didn't have a clear plan to how to get their offensive linemen and their tight ends to the second level in these gap schemes. And that's why even at the lower levels of football, Little League and high school and things like that, they teach them power and they just teach them ISO and things like that. So their assignments are so clearly defined, and guys are getting to the second level. Down blocks. If nobody's in my inside gap, go to the second level, get to the linebacker that's going to be in your inside gap. The puller pulls around. He hits the first thing he sees. There's such a more clear, defined plan for what the Giants want to do in their run game, and then Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo are taking advantage of that. It looks a lot like their 2022 offense when they made the playoffs. Yes, they're not that explosive because they don't have a ton of speed. Yes, they're missing Malik Neighbors. They don't have the downfield threat, but they're making positive plays happen. And that stuff rate stat that you saw in there was just over 13%. That's the percentage of runs that go for 0 or negative yards, right? That's right around 13% now the last 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks, it was 25%, Trev. They were losing or getting no yardage on 1 out of 4 runs their first 3 weeks of the season. Daboll changes the scheme, darts the quarterback, Scatterboo emerges. This Giants run game is a real threat.
I think the run game is going to be paramount for both of these teams. You mentioned how important it is to what the New York Giants are doing right now on the offensive side of the ball, and I agree with you. I think that is a very important part of what they're doing. On the Broncos side of things, though, they have to be better running the football. They're 27th in both running back team rushing grade and running back team EPA per play. So that's when you're just looking at the running backs. You're not taking into account what Bo Nix has been able to do with his legs. Designed runs, getting the ball in the running back's hands. They have really struggled to be a difference-making team and a difference-making rushing team in that regard. Last week, just 44 total yards on 16 combined carries from J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. It's got to be way better than that in order for them to be balanced. And especially, you look at last week, they were so conservative in their game plan, and they were so okay with just running the football and being bad at it that the Jets absolutely could have won that game. I thought that was just not a good game plan from the Denver Broncos, especially down the stretch. They're leaning into a run game that absolutely was not there, and it's got to be better for them this season. So it's got to start this week, I think. Obviously, the Giants have a really stout defensive line, but I think the Broncos have a good offensive line as well. They've got to be more efficient than they have been lately. But on the other side of the ball, what I want to talk about is also the Broncos' defensive line versus Jackson Dart specifically. You talked about what Jackson Dart's been able to do from a running perspective, giving them a multifaceted rushing attack, which I think is really important for this team. Clearly, Brian Daboll operates very well as an offensive play caller when he has the ability to do that, when the quarterback has that sort of threat to him. Broncos, 160 total pressures this season, most in the NFL. Jackson Dart, 49.2 passing grade under pressure with a time to throw of 4 seconds. When he gets pressured, he is hanging onto the ball for so long. Now, a handful of those plays, you actually credit the escapability, him keeping a play alive. That'll bump the time to throw up. I understand all of those things, but it's not a very quick operating system when he is pressured. He, to me, is playing more of the Madden style of what you do when you get pressured. And that is what? Anybody out there that's ever played Madden before, when you hike the football, you get to your first read, it's not there, you're getting pressured. What are you doing? You're retreating 10 yards, and then you're running to the sideline or something. Now, he's not retreating 10 yards, but he's doing the let me bail from the back of the pocket type of a thing. He's not necessarily stepping up in the pocket. He's not trying to get rid of the ball really quickly. He's hanging on to it. That's what he did at Ole Miss. That's who he was as a quarterback, and those are the things that hasn't gotten him in a ton of trouble yet, but it's also why he hasn't been lighting the scoreboard up, or the stat sheet up, I should say, with consistent passes down the field. That's something that's going to be a storyline to watch in this game, how he deals with pressure, because this has been the best team in the NFL at getting pressure on the quarterback at a time to throw like that. You're really going to struggle with it. I'm going to go with the Broncos here as well. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring. I'll go 23-17 with the Broncos winning this game here. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point on Dart. And look, and I think he should be given credit because the receiving core without Malik Neighbors, they don't consistently get open, right? So he should be given credit, late in these plays for maneuvering the pocket and getting outside and running, and he's just doing what he has to do to try to make something out of nothing at times. If you had Malik Neighbors and the quick game was going better, we might have a different conversation. So he should get credit for that, and it's going to be a theme with this Broncos pass rush. How does Jackson Dart respond to pressure? Because there's going to be pressure. I also think the Broncos are going to come in with a very similar game plan as they did last week against the Jets. Neutral situations, 5 defensive linemen, base 3-4 front. You want to run through us, you got to get through this front wall, and we got man-to-man coverage on the back end with Pat Surtain and one of the best sets of corners in the league. So I think it's going to be low scoring. I'm with you. I don't love the way still that this Broncos offense isn't firing on all cylinders, but I'm going to take them at home. Their defense carries them to a win, 20-13.
All right, before we get to the next one, your Indianapolis Colts taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. It's going to be a good game to break down there. October 10th, it's past now, but it was World Mental Health Day. And this year, we were giving a thank you to the therapists, specifically with our friends at BetterHelp. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. That's millions of stories, millions of journeys, and behind every one of them is a therapist who showed up, listened, helped someone take that step forward. Moments in therapy like asking the right questions, having a safe place to get emotional or cry, or small wins. They can change lives. This World Mental Health Day, BetterHelp, was honoring those connections and the therapists who made them possible, while showing how easy it is to get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. I've been doing therapy for over 2 years, and I've loved it. It has helped me become the best version of myself, stay confident in certain situations, not get too down, and honestly, enjoy life a lot more in all of the relationships that I have. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform. It served over 5 million people globally, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 stars for a live session based on 1.7 million client reviews. This World Mental Health Day, we were celebrating the therapists who have helped millions of people take that step forward. And if you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Our listeners get 10% off of their first month at BetterHelp.com/PFF. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/PFF. The Indianapolis Colts, some people, they may not be calling it the perfect season anymore, but some people think this is the number one team in the NFL because of how high the floor is and how consistent the Colts play the game. They're traveling to LA to take on the Los Angeles Chargers, who are dealing with a lot of injuries, but it's still a well-coached football ball club. What do you want to talk about here? You want to talk about the Chargers? Or you want to talk about the Colts?
I'll talk about the Chargers and the way that they have to win games right now. Now, I don't know that I'm not sure that we have word on if Joe Alt is coming back this week or not. I don't know if we have.
I didn't even think that he would.
I don't know if we have that anything leaning towards that on a Wednesday this week. But either way, the story for the Chargers the last few weeks has been, how in the world are we going to work around this offensive line and all the injuries they have, right? And the lack of pass protection. Their last 3 games, okay, their pass blocking grade is 41.2, bottom 5 in the NFL right now. Really struggling to protect Justin Herbert for long periods of time. How has Herbert responded? Okay, 69.9 passing grade. You see that, and a lot of people are going to see that on the surface and go, okay, Justin Herbert's playing worse. He's playing a lot worse. What is the deal? He's not making throws anymore. Hot start. He's not an MVP, things like that. He is doing the best he can right now to work around a team that can't run between the tackles, and they did a good job running off tackle last week, which is one solution, and to work around a team that just cannot pass protect for him right now. So you look at the last 3 weeks, 3rd lowest average depth of target in the NFL. Yards after catch were a big theme last week in their win over Miami. 2.59 second average time to throw. 10th fastest in the NFL in that time frame, but generally actually a lot quicker than Herbert is used to getting rid of the football. He likes to stand back there for a long time, let the routes develop, and throw it downfield. Right now, he's not doing it. He's got to make the adjustment, and honestly, he's done a good job of doing it the last couple of weeks. I know they've lost, they lost to the Giants and they lost to the Commanders, but, these are teams with pretty good defenses, and you have to find a way to work around it. I think last week the blueprint against Miami is the better blueprint of, look, we're going to have to get outside. We're going to have to get the ball out quickly. We still got the athletes in space. Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, hopefully back this week, right? Get these backs going off tackle so they don't have to run in the mud between this injured offensive line, between the tackles. So I think you're going to see, again, a conservative approach from the Chargers, and we're kind of used to seeing that on one side from the Colts, but the Chargers need to keep racking up some key stats here. Running off tackle and yards after catch. Those are the 2 things right now that are going to win them football games. They won them the game against Miami last week. I think that's going to be the blueprint here against the Colts this week, and a Colts team that's not going to give you a ton of extra opportunities.
No, they're not, and they never do. And specifically, it's because I think they control the football on the offensive side of things better than any team in the NFL. When you look at the Colts, yes, we're talking about how efficient Daniel Jones has been. We talk about some of the receivers and how they play him, but the bread and butter, it's the offensive line, it's the run blocking, it's Jonathan Taylor, right? Colts 86.0 run blocking grade over the last 3 weeks. That is first in the NFL. 33.6% play action percentage as well, which I love that they are leaning into that, and Shane Steichen is staying just on the forefront of exactly what makes offenses really tough to deal with. Oh, we're running the football really well. Guess what we're going to do when we pass it? We're going to incorporate a little bit of play action. So they have the highest play action rate in the NFL to go along with the best rushing grade in the NFL. That is really how you combine an offense to be really deadly to control. Chargers, though, 10th best in the NFL this season when it comes to coverage grade versus play action. So Jesse Minter's group, they're very fundamentally sound. They're very ready for it. So they're formidable there in that area. Here's where I get worried with the Chargers when it comes to this side of the ball. 75.6 team run defense grade over the last 3 weeks. Okay, that's 4th. So that's the good news. But average depth of tackle 4 yards behind or in front of the line of scrimmage. That's 17. It's just back half of the NFL. And then when it comes to EPA per rush, so stopping an opposing team when you really need to get a situational stop in the run game, 23rd in the NFL. So even though the run game has been, or the run defense game has been good for the Chargers, I think fundamentally sound. I don't think they're making a ton of mistakes per se. It's situationally, are you able to stop the run when you really need to? They've struggled with that a little bit. And of course, just that average depth of tackle, not being able to make contact and get tackles on guys until 4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. That bodes very well for exactly how much push the Indianapolis Colts get already. I think it's going to be too much. I still think the Chargers are a little too beat up. I know that the Colts are dealing with some injuries, specifically in the secondary as well. But I got the Colts winning this game, controlling this game. 27-20 is the score I have. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a fun game. Another tough road trip for the Colts to L.A. They lost their first one against the Rams, but I thought other than a couple turnovers and the A.D. Mitchell fumble, they showed pretty well in that game against the Rams. The Chargers, I think you're right. It has to start with Jonathan Taylor. They have to slow down Jonathan Taylor. If this Colts offense gets into both dimensions, especially off that left side with Quentin Nelson and Bernard Ryman, you have a real problem because it opens up the RPO game, the bootleg game for Jones, anything downfield. And I think the Chargers, they're going to do a good job of keeping those explosives in front of them because their safety unit is so good. But I'm with you. I think Jonathan Taylor is the big key here. If he can run the football enough and the Chargers can't limit yards after contact like they did against, like they couldn't do, I should say, against the Commanders, then they'll have a problem. But I think this is a tight football game, a really good one. I'll take the Colts too, 24-23.
Commanders, Cowboys. This one's in Dallas. Commanders coming off a loss to the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Cowboys coming off a loss to the Carolina Panthers. So both these teams obviously looking for a little bit of a bounce back here. NFC East showdown. It's always a lot of fun when that happens. And you get two of the most talented quarterbacks in the game going up against each other. You want to talk about the Commanders? You want to talk about the Cowboys?
Certainly two excellent quarterbacks going at it, and everyone's going to talk about that duel. But the key, as always, I think, is going to be the Commanders' their run game on offense. When you talk about if it's Jaden Daniels, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill Krosky-Merritt, whichever it is now, Jeremy McNichols, right? If it's Chris Rodriguez, a little bit, just the different ways they can run the football. And this Cowboys run defense just doesn't seem to be getting any better. Last in the league in run defense grade so far, and not only do they have the worst, right now they don't even just have the worst run defense grade for this year, they have the worst run defense grade of any team in the last 3 years. So, I mean, it's a real problem up front. Like, even with Micah Parsons, we figured the run defense would struggle, but this is at a level that we didn't even see last year. 24th in yards per carry allowed, 30th. They've allowed the third most explosive runs in football. And again, to me, the lack of adjustment from Matt Eberflus, he's just running the same defense out there all the time in these neutral situations and going, hey, split your gaps and figure it out. Don't really love it. The Cowboys have only run 14 snaps this season with at least 5 defensive linemen on the field. And it just, to me, I just go, at any point, against even just certain personnel groups, like you mentioned the Panthers with 2 tight ends on the field last week, at any point, is there any matching of the numbers game up front, or are you just going to keep letting this front four get killed and letting the offensive line have free access to your linebackers? Because that's really where it starts, no matter who your players are, and especially if they're going to lose the battle more often than that. No matter who your players are, the run game is always about numbers. And hat-on-hat football is something talked about all the time on offense. Well, you have to match that, and you got to have one more, and you got to bring people into the box. I'm like, at this point with this Commanders team, and if Terry McLaurin's out again, I would take my chances with them throwing vertically down the field because they haven't been able to without McLaurin. You can't let this Commanders team go in there and run for 220, 230 on you, or they're going to control the game. They're going to keep Dak off the field. You got to put, to me, that's where I start. I go, okay, any thoughts about putting extra guys either on the line of scrimmage or in the box to help out? Because so far they're staying in their normal fronts, and it's just not working.
This game is really tough for me to pick because it's the stoppable force versus the movable object, I think, on both sides of the ball. You mentioned how the Commanders are at their best when they're really able to run the football, and they should be able to, especially with, like you mentioned, how Eberflus has not been willing to put a 5th defensive lineman on the line of scrimmage to really try to get a hat for a hat and try to improve that run game. The Commanders are just going to take that all night long. They'll run the football. They've got a ton of different running backs they can hand the ball off to. Obviously, Jaden is a threat himself with his legs. They're going to run the football. I think it will in this game. But I think on the flip side, Dak Prescott, which there's an argument that nobody's playing quarterback better than Dak Prescott right now. it's kind of an at-will thing with the passing game against the Commanders secondary as well, specifically their corners. 51.0 coverage grade. That's 28th in the NFL this season from just their cornerbacks. So you're mainly looking at Mike Sainristil, you're looking at Marshawn Lattimore, and you're looking at Trey Amos. Trey Amos, the rookie, at a 68.2 is their highest graded cornerback this season. Sainristil is really struggling. He's given up 21 open targets so far this season, 56.8 open target percentage. He had a 46.8 number last season, so that's 10% higher this year. Lattimore has struggled as well, and the thing is, Dalton, there's some positive momentum for CeeDee Lamb coming back for this game, and we've seen what Dak's been able to do without CeeDee Lamb. You put CeeDee Lamb in this game with what George Pickens has been able to do over the last couple of weeks, and how Ryan Flournoy has been good, and getting the ball to Jake Ferguson's been an effective strategy for them as well. I think the Commanders are going to be able to run the ball at will, but it kind of feels like the Cowboys and Dak Prescott might be able to pass their way to a victory as well. So this one's going to be close for me. I'm going to have the Cowboys win in this game because it's in Dallas. I think they're going to have a little bit of extra juice, and especially if they get CeeDee Lamb back. But I'll be a coward here, and I'll say the Cowboys win 28-27. I'm going to go a 1-point game here. I think it's kind of a coin flip with whichever weakness is masked the most on either side, but ultimately I think that it's really tough to stop a hot quarterback when your secondary is really struggling, so I'll go with the Cowboys here.
I mean, if they were to get CeeDee Lamb back, it would be just that could be the thing that changes this game. Love the quote here today from Brian Schottenheimer because CeeDee Lamb is going to practice today. Someone asked him, okay, what do you need to see from CeeDee? And he goes, yeah, if he's breathing, I'd feel pretty good. That's about right. That's how glad he is to have that guy back. And if you have those two threats with Pickens and Lamb now working together, especially as well as Pickens has been playing, you can win this ball game. I think especially if CeeDee is back in this game and the Commanders struggles at corner, it's a 50-50 game. I'm going to go on the other side of the coin. Commanders 31-28, but I'm with you. I think we're getting a shootout because you have two teams who know how to attack the other's weaknesses right now. The Commanders' run game against Dallas front seven, and then those receivers, especially if CeeDee is back against Washington their corners, that's a big mismatch.
The Green Bay Packers traveling to Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals. Not sure what Kyler Murray's status is for this game. I haven't read anything. Obviously, we're recording this on a Wednesday. I haven't read anything that says definitively, like, yeah, he's 100% going to practice. Like, I think Jonathan Gannon said himself, like, Kyler will play when he's ready to play. All right, well, thanks. It doesn't help us. But let's say that Jacoby Brissett starts this game again this week. You want to start talking about the Packers? You want to talk about the Cardinals?
I'm going to go on the Packers' offensive side. I mean, I know there's a lot of mystery to the Cardinals' offense right now. I will say that Jacoby Brissett, in rhythm, I thought threw the ball pretty well last week against the Colts. It gave them a chance to win. They were about 8 yards from winning that game and, just didn't get it done at the end of it. Their defense didn't play well enough. And look, I think this Packers' offense for me, and I love the approach that they had last week against Cincinnati. Could they have gone out there and just slung it all over the place and maybe tried to put up 45 points on the Bengals? Maybe they could have tried to. But I think at the end of the day, for as much as Packers fans, they're waiting for people like us to start calling Jordan Love a lead, and they want to see Matthew Golden hit more home runs and the downfield throwing and all. This offense starts with Josh Jacobs. No matter what you think of anybody else on the team. And I love Golden, and Romeo Doubs is playing great. Tucker Kraft is great. Jordan Love, obviously, at times up and down, but he's mostly really good. But it starts with Josh Jacobs, and it starts with what he gives you in the run game. And then, again, we've talked about this three-layered approach with the Packers. Running the football, winning down low, winning with Jordan Love in the intermediate range, and then you start to open up the home runs with Matthew Golden down the field. If they get all three of those layers going, they're one of the best offenses in football, if not at times the best offense in football. But it starts with Jacobs, who is 6th in the league in rushing grade. He's 2nd in receiving grade. What he's given him as a pass catcher right now has been outstanding. The Cardinals, these are two things they're struggling with. They have the 3rd worst run defense grade in the league right now. I just think their interior, the defensive line, they don't have a lot of depth beyond Calais Campbell. And the linebackers are something I've been concerned about with the preseason. 3rd worst run defense grade in the NFL, 28th in coverage grade against running backs. There is a chance for Josh Jacobs to have another massive week, and I think that should always be, no matter how much we like Jordan Love and how hot he can get and the receivers and all the weapons on the outside. Step 1 in this offense is Josh Jacobs getting me 5-6 yards on first down. If that happens, everything else for everybody else on this offense gets so much easier. I think that's the formula again this week.
Yeah, I think that you're right that the offense, it felt like, was operating a little bit more efficiently last week than what we have seen from the Cardinals, and that could be a part of the game plan, right? I mean, when Kyler Murray's in there, he's got the ability to really stretch the ball deep down the field, so you're probably game planning more of those shots anyway. So when you see a little bit more of a methodical passing game plan, it's not just, oh, Kyler Murray sucks, he couldn't operate this game plan. It's a little bit different, right? I think Jacoby Brissett's, the game plan for him is going to be a little bit more methodical, so you're going to see that. But he was able to execute it pretty well. I'm still worried about this run game. I talked about in the early parts of the season, I was worried about their run blocking anyways. The lack of impact run blocking plays that they had from their interior offensive linemen, I think that still exists with Trey Benson and James Conner out, so it doesn't help that those guys are out of the game. But specifically, I wanted to actually go back to the other side of the ball, because I think the Cardinals can work things on offense to get around 20 points in this game. But scoring more than the Packers, I think, will come down to something that you brought up on the Monday show that I really like that point. When I was talking about Matthew Golden and talking about how much of a big game hunter Jordan Love is, especially on third down, how he had a couple of 20-plus yard throws to Matthew Golden on third down. And I was like, well, you know, is he going to get that every single week? And you pointed out, like, hey, you know, he might not get that every single week, but now that he has the element to do so, some weeks it might be a Matthew Golden week deep down the field. Some weeks it might be a little bit underneath or over the intermediate with Tucker Kraft or Romeo Doubs or whoever it is. So I wanted to look this up from the Cardinals and how they have defended the three levels of the field when it comes to how vertical that you get as a passer. 0 to 9 yards past the line of scrimmage, the Cardinals have allowed a 79.8% completion percentage. That's 19th in the NFL. So not the best, second half of the league there. The intermediate, 10 to 19 yards down the field, 48.2 completion percentage. They're actually defending that decently well. They are sixth best in the NFL when it comes to completion percentage in that area. And then 20 plus yards down the field, 40.0% completion percentage. That is 14th in the NFL. So I wonder if it is, to your point, just more of a, hey, Jordan Love, you're going to have things underneath. Take him this game. You're going to have things from 0 to 10 yards down the field. You're going to have Romeo Doubs quick. You're going to have Tucker Kraft quick. It's going to be a yards after the catch type of a game, because that's where the Cardinals have really struggled. They've been a team that wants to keep things in front of them. They don't want to get beat over the top. They don't want to get beat deep. Is Jordan Love willing to take those underneath plays? And if so, I think it could be a big day from Tucker Kraft and Romeo Doubs. Ultimately, I do think that the Packers get it done here. I'm going to say 28-21, but I think this game is decently competitive, especially if Love maybe has any variance or inconsistencies at all whatsoever. So I'll go 28-21 with the Packers winning this game on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you. Similar score. I have it 27-20 Packers. And again, I think this is the week where what you want to look for from the Cardinals, and it's a good group of safeties they have back there, what you want to look for is how often in neutral situations are they staying in too high. They play more quarters than just about any team in football. I think actually it might be the highest rate in football that they play quarters that cover 4 look on the back end. That's the Matthew Golden effect. How often do they stay back there in too high looks with respect to Matthew Golden, and how do the Packers respond to it? Do they run the football against too high as they should? Does Jordan Love throw it underneath like you mentioned and let these guys work after the catch? And then if the Cardinals make an adjustment, let's say Josh Jacobs is running the ball, if they make an adjustment and they go single high or rotate down into something, then is that the one home run shot to Matthew Golden that really puts this game away? I think the balance of safeties is something I'm always looking for against this Packers offense. I like them in this game. I think the Cardinals, there's too many areas of their team right now where they're playing below average football. And I think especially on defense at linebacker and again at defensive tackle, I think Jacobs has a chance to have a huge game, and then the Packers can work right off it again.
There's just too many things that feel like on paper they line up for the Packers to have a more explosive day on offense. And I feel like they're going to get a couple of those plays more than what the Cardinals are. And some of that's due to injury, and that obviously sucks for Arizona's side of things. But I do agree with you. I think the Packers are winning in this one. The Falcons coming off a big Monday Night Football victory against the Buffalo Bills. They're traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. You want to talk about the Falcons, or you want to talk about the Niners here?
Well, I'm going to go the running back angle again, right? And I know for as much as it's what is it again? PFF hates running backs or whatever the old phrase is, but that's certainly
we think they shouldn't exist. Yeah, abolish the position entirely.
Right. Yeah, but in the case of a few rare special exceptions like Josh Jacobs and like Bijan Robinson, sometimes we can absolutely love them and what they set up for the rest of their offense. So it's going to be a similar theme here. I think here's the thing. You're going to see with Tatum Bethune and D. Winters, the linebackers for the 49ers, after now this Fred Warner season-ending injury, you're going to see right away if they're up to the task, because they got to tackle Bijan Robinson, and that might be the hardest thing to do in football right now. 6th in the NFL among qualified running backs in PFF grade. That's part of that is due to just a couple of fumbles, honestly, that we ding you heavy for. If you're wondering why his grade was lower last week than you might think, it was an unofficial fumble on the first play of the game, and then it takes a lot of individual, like, separate runs to get positive grades, to get up in that 90s range, especially when you have a fumble on the record there. So, look, 6th best running back in football. I'm sure by the time we get into more weeks here, he might be 1st or 2nd on that list, but leading the league in yards per carry, leading the league in yards per reception, leading the league in combined missed tackles forced. Honestly, outside of the couple occasions this year where he's fumbled the football, he's been the best back in football. I'm not going to tell you any different, even when it comes to the narrow difference in grading and things like that. He's been outstanding, and look, if he can get up on these linebackers in the run game first with Tatum Bethune and D. Winters there, and then in the passing game where he's just been outstanding as a receiver, lining up wherever he needs to line up. It can be out of the backfield, or I've mentioned before, the looks where they have a Charlie Werner in the backfield to pass protect and Bijan lined up out wide. It's a big thing. I think that's the first thing you have to look at as any opposing defense. Michael Penix has been a bit inconsistent. Drake London's obviously great. You have to have a plan for him, but where is Bijan Robinson at any given point, and how often are they going to give him the football? Because he is one of the elite offensive players in football. If you don't stop him, Buffalo learned that on Monday, you're probably not going to get very far.
No, there's no doubt about it. Obviously, you always have to account for where Bijan is on the football field. On the other side of things, it's reported that Brock Purdy could be back this week, but whether it's Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, I think that this point that I'm about to make stays the same no matter what. So when you look at the Atlanta Falcons, I wanted to take a look at how they generated pressures, because Jeff Ulbrich, their defensive coordinator, he has been more aggressive this year than I think he has been in years past. When you look at these last 3 weeks specifically from the Atlanta Falcons, they have a 58.1% pass blitz rate, which is 2nd most in the NFL. I believe it's only behind Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings. They have a 31.1% blitz percentage from the box, so from the linebacker level. That's 3rd highest percentage in the NFL. So when they are blitzing from the linebacker level. They're only 21st with a 9.1% on 6-man blitzes. So a lot of times they're only blitzing one extra player, and it is one of those linebackers, because they're very low on percentages of blitzes from the slot and from the cornerback position. So this is a team that's very aggressive right now, throwing pressure at the quarterback, and they're doing so from the linebacker level in the box. When you look at Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, both of these players have very quick time to throws and pretty good passing grades under pressure. When you look at Mac Jones's time to throw against pressure is like 2.5. Like it's really fast. And when you look at Brock Purdy, it's a little bit higher. It's like a 2.93. Well, actually, it's a 2.93 is the lowest that it's been in his career. I think this year it's actually a 2.7 for when he's been out on the field. I know he's missed a little bit of time. But his passing grade has been consistently in the 70s and 80s when you talk about passing grade under pressure when it comes from facing the blitz. And so all of that to say, blitzing, pressure, aggression has been the Falcons' bread and butter. They have been able to overwhelm offensive lines and quarterbacks when they have been doing that over the last 3 weeks. The Niners are pretty good with their quarterbacks and their offensive philosophy at mitigating those things. And so when you talk about the fact that they might get George Kittle back this week, they might get Ricky Pearsall back this week, right? They're getting a little bit more healthy. I'm actually taking the 49ers here in this one. Give me the 49ers. I can't remember what the line is on this game, but I'm going to take the Niners 27-23, because whether it is Mac Jones or whether it is Brock Purdy, both of these quarterbacks have been very decisive, confident, and have graded pretty well and performed pretty well against pressure. And I wonder what kind of a second half adjustment Ulbrich might have if they get really aggressive in the first half like they have been throughout the last couple of weeks and it doesn't work. What do you do then? I'm not so sure with that young defense they're going to have those answers to change things up and sort of out chess match the 49ers especially with this game being all the way in San Francisco. So I'll go the 49ers here in this one.
Yeah, I think it's a great point about the pass rush because despite this team not having a guy at the level of a Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett or TJ Watt or somebody like that, they're doing it with a diverse array of options, right? Trev, 17 different guys have a pressure this year and 11 different guys have a sack. So, I mean, you look at just the creative ways and you have different players who can do a ton of different things. Caden Ellis has long been one of the more versatile players who can switch between edge and linebacker. Divine Diablo is blitzing at times. You know, Jalen Walker, he's the funny one because they haven't gotten too creative with him, but you absolutely could. Right now he's playing exclusively off the edge, but you could put him anywhere that you want to. Guys like Brandon Dorless and Ruka Rororo inside, you've got a ton of different options that makes their front seven very fluid in pass rushing situations, and they're doing a good job of manufacturing. Certainly a lot better job of manufacturing a pass rush than they did last year, so that's a heavy credit to Jeff Ulbrich. I'm actually going to take Atlanta in this game, and I do think, again, it's because of Bijan Robinson, and I'm so worried now about this Fred Warner injury and him being out. That could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I know the Niners and Kyle Shanahan, they've done such an outstanding job of getting through these injuries and to so many different star players, right? All the offensive guys and Nick Bosa. But this is the one that really hurts in a matchup like this. And I think Bijan Robinson's the best player on the field again. I've got the Falcons 24-20. As long as Michael Penix can make, like he did last week, a handful of throws that move the chains on third down, I like where this Falcons offense is at right now.
We got a Monday night doubleheader. It's an early and it's a late slate. We got the Bucs and the Lions teeing off at 7:15, and then the Texans and Seahawks at 10 p.m. Eastern. So we're obviously going to talk about the Bucs and the Lions first. But before we dig into it, Terron Armstead, our guy, was back to talk about an incredible trench matchup that we have here this week in this game. Aiden Hutchinson versus Tristan Wirfs. Let's hear what he had to say. Here we go. Another Monday Night Football doubleheader. And the first of those is the Buccaneers and the Lions, which, Terron, these two teams, depending on what power rankings you look at, they could be 1 and 2. There's people who like the Lions a ton. I know they're coming off the loss to the Chiefs, but still, they've had a great couple of first games. They're obviously one of the most talented teams in the NFL. Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers are 5-1. So this is, for some people, 1 versus 2 here on primetime and Monday Night Football. And we also have two of the best in the trenches as well. I got to talk about Aiden Hutchinson and Tristan Wirfs going head-to-head. Now, they're not always going to go head-to-head, of course. I think the Lions are going to say, guy on the other side of the offensive line is not Tristan Wirfs. So I don't know how many times we get this matchup, but I hope we get it plenty because there are going to be fireworks when it happens. Who do you want to talk about first? I will give you the dealer's choice. We're going to talk about both of these guys. You want to talk about Tristan Wirfs, what makes him so great, or Aiden Hutchinson having another elite pass rush year?
I'll talk about Tristan Wirfs first. Right. It's only right, you know, in the fraternity, the O-line fraternity.
There you go.
Show love to the big dog first. Tristan he's incredible. He's always been in the discussion as tackle 1, 2, or 3, however you wanna slate it. And he's coming off injury where he didn't play earlier in the season, so he's getting back and getting his groove again. He's finding his timing, his technique, and as the season progresses, he'll be able to knock rust off and look even more dominant in the weeks to come. It's crazy that these guys are able to be 5-1 without him in the lineup for a lot of these games. Baker is playing incredible. He's his timing in the pocket, his pocket presence. He's extending plays. He's not taking many sacks. He's playing on an MVP level. So your quarterback operating that style of play and the way that he's being productive, it gives you more confidence on the O-line. Like me blocking Aiden Hutchinson with the way that Baker Mayfield is playing right now, it changes that dynamic. If you got a quarterback that's very indecisive, he's sitting in the pocket, he's drifting back, that changes things. That keep you up at night. It stresses you out even more. So the way Baker is playing, Tristan Wirfs will be really comfortable in this matchup against Aiden Hutchinson.
So Tristan Wirfs has not given up a sack yet this season. You mentioned he missed a couple of games, so he's only played in 3, but he hasn't given up a sack yet this year. He didn't give up a sack, or we didn't credit him with giving up a sack all of last year as well. So he hasn't had a sack that is truly his fault since 2023, which is pretty crazy to say. Huh? What? Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy number. And when you look at his pass blocking efficiency numbers, 97.4 this year, it's about where it is every single year at a 97, 98, 99. He is just one of the best pass protectors in the NFL. And Terron, when I watch him, the thing that impresses me the most is the athleticism and the balance, those two things, because there are times when I will watch Tristan Wirfs where, he'll try to get hands on a guy early. He'll try to get an early punch in there, knock them off of their rhythm, knock them off of their pass rush route, if you will, disrupt them in that way. But there are some times when he goes for it and the pass rush is ready for it. So either he'll swipe the hands away or, he'll be able to bounce off it a little bit. But it's that recovery, athleticism, and balance that allows him to get there. You're one of the most athletic offensive tackles in the NFL during your time. Talk to me about how important that core strength, that balance is to having that sort of an output as a pass blocker.
It's vital. It's vital. It's very, very important, especially with the evolution of rushers nowadays. I didn't even talk about Aiden Hutchinson yet, but we can discuss him as well. But like the evolution of these rushers and the Euro steps and all the lateral movement that these guys are incorporating into their rushes, you have to be able to mirror and have that lateral ability as well. And the thing about Tristan Wirfs, like for me, my athleticism was the strength of my game. Like I had to play that way. I was never the biggest tackle. He is probably the biggest tackle, but also probably the best athlete. So it's like, man, he's made in a laboratory. If you're designing an offensive lineman, a left tackle, you're going to build Tristan Wirfs.
I mean, what he brings to the table is incredible. You talk about the pass rush moves that a lot of these guys have. I love how you brought up the Euro step, right? It's a little bit of an extra step in there from like a cross trot move. I think of the Manu Ginobili Spurs days where he's, taking the exaggerated 1-2. If I was an offensive lineman, just to get in their head, I'd be yelling travel. If they gave me some sort of a Euro move, I'd be yelling travel at them to get them off of their game. Maybe make them laugh a little bit, be less intense, because that could be your advantage. And whether it's Tristan Wirfs or whoever is going to be going up against Aiden Hutchinson, they need to find those little advantages, right? Third year in a row where Aiden Hutchinson has an elite pass rushing grade this season. He's already got 6 sacks on the year. Another season where his pass rush win percentage is not just above 20, but it's above 25 again this year. Hutch has such a deep bag. He can beat you in so many different ways. And you and I have talked on this show over the last couple of weeks of, okay, when a guy wins with speed, this is how you kind of game plan for him. You mentioned, all right, I got to take away his power first, see if he's a little bit stronger of a guy. Hutchinson throws so many things at you. He wins from an athletic standpoint, but also such a technical standpoint. So how do you approach players like that really just have this deep pass rush bag, and how you plan for them when they can throw a lot of different stuff at you?
Trevor, I played against Aiden Hutchinson his rookie year, and I walked away from that game thoroughly impressed and glad that I would never have to block that young man again. So I know you guys have probably saw my interview. I'm talking about Jared Verse, and like as the guys that made me step away from the game. Aiden Hutchinson was one of those reasons. He's one of my 13 reasons for sure. We can eliminate all the athleticism, his size, his ability. He is intelligent, and that makes it very, very difficult to block these guys. Like you have all the attributes, you have all the physical traits that you need to do this, but his IQ on the field, the way he is able to read sets. I tried a jump set on him. He went inside immediately. You don't see that for a rookie. No hesitation, swiping hands. He was trying to make an inside move. Like his ability to have a plan so early in his career is scary. He's only going to get better. He's only getting better. He has a 92.3 overall grade right now, 36 pressures. He's leading the league, and it's insane what he's able to do in his young career, and it's only going to grow.
And that's the stuff that gives you a long career too, right? I mean, like you get into the league from being a great athlete, but you stay in the league a long time, sort of with your mind and your IQ, and he's setting himself up to have a successful and a long career. I cannot wait to watch this one. This is going to be exciting. As a fan of the game of football, I hope we get Aiden Hutchinson on Tristan Wirfs a lot. As a fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I don't know, how much I want him beating up on Tristan Wirfs and making the stats a little bit worse if he ends up getting better. But this is going to be a fun game to watch no matter what. Terron, we appreciate it as always, my friend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
All right, there we go. Terron Armstead doing a fantastic job, as he always does, helping us break down the trenches here for this major matchup between, like I said, for some people, it's team number 1, team number 2, Detroit Lions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Could be a preview of the NFC Championship game. Who knows? What do you think about this one, Dalton? You want to talk about the Lions? You want to talk about the Bucs?
I love that. For some people, the Bucs might be number one. Just some people, a handful of them. Some Tampa natives, some of them. Who knows? But anyway,
NFLSC people are gonna get on you because they're gonna get on me because I had them ranked 4th on Monday when we did the power ranking show. But the only reason I really had them 4th is because I didn't drop the Eagles like a rock. I had the Eagles still in the top 3, so it's like, okay, well, the Eagles technically beat the Bucs, so I can't really put them right next to each other and not put the Eagles right there because they won and the results do matter. And that was also before the Buffalo game, so dropping Buffalo a little bit lower, but yeah, you know how I feel. You know how I feel about the team. Cautiously optimistic. Don't want to get called a homer, but they are one of the best teams.
I'll tell you what. We got to spend a day with the college football playoff committee a few weeks ago, and all of that argument you just made right there would just fit perfectly into the committee. they should get you in for that one, and just that line of deductive reasoning is fantastic.
It is tougher than people think it is. It really is.
Oh, I know the power rank, and of course you're never. It's just nobody ever thinks you're right when it comes to power rankings. So you know how that goes. Anyway, so I think there are 2 elements to this game. One that I think Terron talked about there with Aiden Hutchinson, you guys mentioned against Tristan Wirfs, who's so good. But I think it's interesting to me, both of those guys, Hutchinson and Al-Qadim Muhammad, their other edge player who's playing outstanding, especially as a pass rusher right now. And what it's allowed Hutchinson to do is work both sides of the line of scrimmage there, where it used to be he would exclusively line up on the front side and over that right tackle. And in recent years, especially this year, it's a little bit closer to 50-50. Now he can go either way. So we're going to get some of Hutchinson versus Wirfs. We're going to get some of Muhammad on the other side, and I think that's really a matchup too that you want to look at, is that right side with Charlie Heck over there at right tackle still. That's something that needs to be paid attention to as well. So overall, I think the Lions pass rush is a big factor in this game. And the other one too for me is Jared Goff against Todd Bowles against the blitzing, right? I think when you look at Todd Bowles, I think the stat I had earlier was they have created the most total pressures when blitzing this season. Todd Bowles has done an outstanding job of creating pressure, but Jared Goff has been outstanding against the blitz this season. 5th best passing grade in football, 1st in adjusted completion percentage, and he's only taken 1 sack when he's been blitzed this season, fewest in the NFL. So when you look at the matchup of Jared Goff needing to get rid of the football quickly and over the middle of the field, like you're going to talk about where the Lions like to throw the ball so often, those are 2 big factors. I think a lot of this game on the Lions side, obviously the run game is a big factor too. We know this, they want to run the football, but in those passing situations, it's Jared Goff versus Todd Bowles. How does he handle pressure? How does he see it? Does he get the football to the right windows like he's been doing all year?
So for me, the keys in this game is how the Buccaneers defend 2 players specifically, and they're kind of obvious ones. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. How you defend those players, I think, is paramount. And that puts 2 players into the X factor categories for me. The first one is Savasier Dennis, the linebacker from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who really struggled with Bijan Robinson out of the gate in their first game. Bijan really cooked him. He had a bad day in coverage. And we just talked about the Falcons. Bijan's one of the best in the NFL, but so is Jahmyr Gibbs as a receiver out of the backfield. Now, Dennis has had the 2 highest graded coverage games that he's had this season over the last 2 weeks. And so he's kind of put that first week behind him, and he's gotten a little bit better, which is very, very important for them. So mitigating the damage that Jahmyr Gibbs can do as a receiver out of the backfield, I think it's going to be very key in this game. The Buccaneers were able to make some adjustments when defending Christian McCaffrey last week. Can they do those same things to really disrupt how Jahmyr Gibbs gets involved in the pass game? That is priority number 1. Priority number 2, or maybe you want to flip these, Amon-Ra St. Brown. A little bit of a quiet day last week. I think they're going to try to really build a game plan around this guy to be able to move the ball deep down the field and try to score a lot of points and put a lot of points on the scoreboard. Jacob Parrish, the Bucs rookie, I think is going to be paramount for this game specifically, because Zion McCollum, he might be back in this game. He'll probably see Amon-Ra St. Brown a little bit, but specifically, St. Brown moves around a ton, plays in the slot, plays on the outside. It's Jacob Parrish who really is going to be matched up with him a good amount in this game, especially because he's been able to get a lot of experience throughout the early parts of this season. The last 3 games that he has played, we have the highest coverage grade that Jacob Parrish has had so far in his career in this week, or in this year. The lowest, by far, against the Seattle Seahawks. And then once again, the second highest coverage grade in a single game that he has had. So it has been a busy 3 weeks for him. But I genuinely look at even that Seattle game where he struggled, and I go, Yeah, I mean, he gave up some catches, but damn, he's still close in coverage. He's kind of close to making that play, and like he is yielding the catch. Like that is happening. But I still think that he's right there for us. So I think he's going to be up to the challenge from a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm not saying that he's going to shut him out or anything like that. I think St. Brown's going to get his. He's one of the most talented receivers in the NFL to do so. But I think it's those two X factors in this game. Of course, there's the conversation about the trenches and Hutchinson and Al-Qadim Muhammad going up against the Bucs offensive line and how Baker Mayfield plays and, what version of Mike Evans are they going to get if Mike Evans is going to come back in this game. So there's all of those factors there. But it really, with two fantastic teams, to me, it boils down to those two matchups specifically. Can the Bucs defend those two star players in the passing game for the Lions enough for some Baker Mayfield magic to happen like it's happened a handful of times this year? Of course. In a coin flip game, I'm using a two-headed coin. I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I'm going to take them to win 27-23. It's a coin flip game. I don't know who's going to win. This one's in Detroit. But the Bucs went into Detroit, what was it, last year, the year before? I can't remember when it was right at the beginning of the season, and they ended up getting a victory in Detroit. So it's not like this can't happen. They're one of the few teams to be able to do that, and I think the team's even better this time around, even with some of their injuries. So I'm going to take the Bucs in this one to win a close one, 27-23.
Dangerous part of that is Emeka Egbuka is probably not playing this week, and how can the Bucs go into Detroit with Cameron Johnson, Tej Johnson, Sterling Shepard, maybe Chris Godwin will be back? Can they go in with that crew, even though the Lions have a lot of injuries at cornerback, and still put up the explosive plays in the passing game? I'm with you. I mean, Baker Mayfield's never going to go away, so it's going to be a tight game no matter what. But I think the Lions offensively, I think they find a way to score enough points here. I have it 27-21 Detroit. I think Jahmyr Gibbs does get going. The third guy I want to throw in there as far as an X factor too, I think Sam Laporta is a big factor in this game too. When you talk about how much in general Levante David and Servassier Dennis have struggled at linebacker to cover in space, I think Laporta could play a big factor in that too. So, you always have a shot with Mayfield, and if Todd Bowles can get the pressure home on Goff, then you're in a good spot. But I'm going to take the Lions here. I'm going to go against you on this one.
Texans at Seahawks. This is the nightcap Monday Night Football game that we have next week. Boy, Sam Darnold's been playing some great football, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But talk to me about the Texans. How can the Texans keep this one in game? Because this one's in Seattle. The Texans have struggled at the beginning part of the year, and I think a lot of people think this is an obvious win for the Seahawks. But talk to me about the Texans and how they can keep this one close.
Yeah, I don't think the Texans are ever, especially with their defense, an obvious win, and what we know C.J. Stroud can do on offense if the offensive line is playing well enough. But I think the thing in their last two games, they were off this past week, so the long road trip coming off of a bye week, might actually help them a little bit. But they ran the football at least reasonably well in their last two games, those two wins against Tennessee and Baltimore. Now, those aren't great teams, and they were ahead for a lot of those games, but they're running the football darn near 49% of the time. Nick Caley knows he can't make C.J. Stroud be one-dimensional. He has to find a way to run the football, mixing in more of the rookie Woody Marks in there with Nick Chubb, a lot more yards after contact per attempt from those backs over the last two wins that they've had. 26.5% of their runs right now going for first downs or a touchdown. So, look, the Texans with their O-line and really the lack of speed at running back, they're not going to be the best rushing team in football. We know this. There's several other teams, obviously, they're going to be way ahead of them in that factor. But they need some sort of balance. They can't ask C.J. Stroud to just drop back and throw the football 50 times, especially with all the looks that Mike McDonald can give you on defense. So I think the idea is going to be for the Texans to slow this game down a little bit, find enough of a run game, and then the explosives can create themselves off of it. If Nick Chubb and Woody Marks play as well as they have the last two games, then the Texans do have a shot to go out and get a road win.
I would certainly agree with you. Now, I think that on top of that, Seahawks 22nd team run defense grade over the last 3 weeks, 14th in EPA per rush allowed. So I think that there is a script where the Texans can do a little bit more on the ground than I think they did at the beginning of the year when people were like, the Texans just aren't going to be able to run the football now. They've been a little bit better at it. So I think that against this Seahawks defense, maybe it's a script where they can stick to and control the ball a little bit more than people think. But I'm going to be honest with you, Dalton. Sam Darnold plays the way that he's played through the first 6 weeks of the season, won't matter. Here's some Sam Darnold stats for everybody out there. Overall, PFF passing grade, 92.8. It's first in the NFL. Versus the blitz, 84.6. It's fifth in the NFL. Versus pressure, 72.3. That's also fifth in the NFL. Of throws 15 or more yards down the field, 99.0, first in the NFL. Middle of the field throws, 96.0, it's first in the NFL. He is first in least amount of turnover-worthy plays when it comes to a turnover-worthy play percentage, and he is also first in the NFL in big-time throw percentage. There's nobody playing the quarterback position better on what he is asked to do than Sam Darnold right now. He has been unbelievable to watch over the last couple of weeks. His chemistry with Kubiak, their offensive coordinator, has just been on point. And I think that as the Seahawks get healthier on the defensive side of the football, this is going to be a team that is going to be a tough out every single week until we get into the playoffs, because I am predicting that this, of course, is a playoff team. I predicted them to win the division. So, of course, I'm going to say that. But I think that this team is manifesting into the potential that it had when we looked at them on paper before the season. And quite frankly, that's my biggest talking point here in this game, because unless Sam Darnold looks different than what we've seen over the first 6 weeks, won't matter. Seahawks are going to win the football game. Now, if it's one of those things where it's, hey, week-to-week league, you never know what's going to happen here and there, right? And Sam Darnold plays a little bit worse, then it opens the door, of course. But if Sam plays the way that he has through the first 6 weeks, the Seahawks are going to win this football game. I've got the Seahawks winning. With an interesting score here, just for fun at the end here. 26-19. I have no idea if it's scoregami or not, but I went 26-19 here for this one.
Oh, you're trying to get the oddball score like I did for the Ohio State game last week.
I am. Yeah,
I see. You go on the oddball route. Once in a while, it works. I've got Seattle 21-17. A little lower scoring. I think you still have two pretty good defenses here. And two things I think also to look out for: Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross, Seattle's tackles, obviously against Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. And then I think it's that matchup right there, always the tackles and the edge duo when you're talking about Houston is a big thing. And then when you talk about, now I'm getting a Derek Stingley Jr., Sam Darnold's ability to throw the ball down the middle of the field, and the fact that he's been the best middle of the field passer in the league this year, I think that helps him a lot in this game. I'm not trying to mess around on the outside with Stingley and Lassiter. That's the two areas with the Houston Texans defense that you worry about the most. The two edge rushers who are both primetime, and the two corners who are outstanding outside the numbers. Got to protect Darnold, got to throw it down the middle of the field. If they can do that, then Seattle gets a home win. I like Seattle 21-17.
All right. There we go, folks. If you guys want to see any of these numbers that we talked about here on the show, or anything else that you could possibly think of, you're probably going to be able to find it if you have a PFF Plus subscription. PFF NFL Show 25 is how you can get a 25% off ticket to get that PFF Plus subscription that lasts throughout not just football season, but also the offseason as well. So when we get into the team building side of things, the draft, free agency, all the good stuff, you still have all of those resources and tools to be able to figure out, hey, if I was running the team, this is how I would do it. You could fortify that argument and your thoughts there with a good PFF Plus subscription. So again, PFF NFL Show 25. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, it's a free way to really help out this channel. So if you have enjoyed any of the content that we made, whether it's the one-off videos or these videos or like whatever it is, and you're not subscribed, we would love for you to be. We'd love for you guys to hang out in the chat. Shout out everybody in the chat who got in on this show and every show that we do here. For Dalton Wasserman, for all the producers behind the glass that make these things possible, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching another edition of the PFF NFL Show. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you for the Grades Release Show on Monday. See you guys then.